thinking,
coming.
so the payphone
Okay.
at the
Send me a
school,
text.
you would dial your home number, so
Thing
it
I
would
can
dial,
push out.
it would dial out, but you couldn't talk to anybody. It would be like, you wouldn't be able to speak in the receiver and they could hear you. So you let it ring once, or
Yep.
you hang up, so it's gonna ring once at our house on the landline. Somebody knows, oh, hey, somebody's at school needs to get, at the payphone needs, they're trying to communicate to home. It's like, they'd pick up the phone at my house, and they would dial the payphone number at the school.
And they would
it
call
wouldn't,
back.
it wouldn't ring there, but you'd know, you'd wait, and then you'd go bang, you pick it up, and there's.
See, I just used to call my parents collect, and like when it says you have a collect phone calls from, and then you have your name,
Yeah.
I would like hurry up and like spill my message out, and then just hang up.
Nice. Right.
Right.
The good old days, and then there'd be the ones, the phones that didn't have the turn. It was just like a big, it was just a blank disc there. But as long as you picked up the receiver and you started tapping out the number itself, so it was like, you know, you remember when it was only four digits? Yeah.
Your
So I could.
recorders are on, cameras are on.
Let's roll. Which one do you want to start with? Technology?
I mean, you have an order on here, but I just soon do the technology town buildings and get those.
Let's work our way through the binder. Let's
Just
start with-
before he starts, I passed out some updated financials, and a lot of it's based on the last meeting we had, so you've got a little bit of everything here.
dispensing with all of that,
This is all
absolutely.
Yeah,
Actually,
this is what she's mine.
attendance tonight,
No, that's yours.
everybody's present except for Mr. Kraft. We can
I grabbed the April 11th.
avoid the roll call. Please and thank you.
Is this for tonight? I don't think it is.
That's the school budget, but I've given you updates, all of that stuff is updated budgets based on the last budget meeting.
All right. Everybody at the technology tab?
Nope.
You're going backwards?
Yeah. We can pace ourselves so we'll see how long we get through the smallest of his budgets.
So there's only two changes in the technology budget. Basically, account line 5271, which is the service and software agreements, and that's an increase based on Munis, I believe. But there's, I believe in the breakdown, it shows you a chart on how that account is calculated. And I'm happy to go through that list of software items if you'd like.
Just on the software, all of Trio is still in there, and I have to back some of the software out just as soon as I figure out when we're gonna start with Munis on different modules, and some of it we may do for just a 6-month period, so what's in the budget is the worst-case scenario, and it will be reduced.
Okay.
I just don't know what it's gonna be reduced to at this point.
That was easy.
Web hosting. What? Give me a little more specific, what that actually means.
Internet and web hosting?
Yeah.
That's our internet connectivity. That's basically what we pay Oxford, Time Warner, and the different locations for our actual internet connectivity. And then it's our licensing for the website, as well as the other, at this point, the police website. I think that's the only other one that's got a separate licensing.
Okay, so the 2 domains plus connectivity to the web.
Yep. That we increased that by $500 based on estimates from the branding project. Some of the other web hosting, I believe, was a little bit higher than what we're currently paying.
Okay.
And then the other one is the 5405 line, and that we included an additional $50,000 over what we generally budget, and that was to upgrade our server software. And we had 3 options from Roundtable. And this stemmed from the desire to get the police department off from pd.com onto lisbonme.org, so that we were all on the same email exchange. But it's also, we need to migrate away from a server, I think it's 2007 to 2016. And there was 3 different options. One of them, you could do Office 365, which is a subscription, but you'd end up paying much forever,
Right.
conceivably. Or the option is to upgrade the server software, which is what, we'd be upgrading that software for the first time since we installed the servers initially. And that'd be a $46,000, almost a $47,000 investment.
When were they initially?
Pardon?
When were they initially?
2008, I believe. The server hardware was replaced last year, but, I believe it was last year, but the software needs to, it's time for that. It's gonna, we're not gonna have a choice, because it's eventually server 08 or 07 is gonna,
Not gonna be
Microsoft's not gonna
supported
support it
anymore.
anymore.
Exactly.
The subscription options were, again, I've got initial costs and then estimated 5-year costs. The initial cost for just doing email only was about $17,000, but the 5-year cost is $40,000, and that's strictly email. That's not the rest of the server operating system. And then we've got about $29,000 if we go with the full Office 365 suite, which is
Every year.
and that's there's some upfront costs based on the transition, but the estimated 5-year cost for that's $81,000. So the recommendation from Roundtable is for us to go with upgrade the local software and be done with it. It's again a $47,000 project, but
Is that
it should be good for another 8 years.
is that a one-time cost? I mean, we wouldn't have to do any other upgrades next year, would we? So that's one that you could add to this page.
General fund,
I
Fund
didn't
balance.
pick up on that earlier, and I should have.
Let me ask, and this is something that was swimming around in my head when we started to kind of dive into this initially. Said Roundtable make the suggestion, are they the folks that we fall back on for maintenance? Who handles our issue? Roundtable are the folks?
Yep.
Did they, the server piece of things, do they have it, we have that all here, correct?
Correct.
Do they do any, do they have a data center?
It is backed up here and in the cloud. We have
So they have their own data
yeah.
center?
I don't know if it's their own or if they
farm out.
farm it out, but we
There's
pay.
one in Brunswick they could be using, and there's, with BNAS becoming a part of the private, that they've opened up a huge data center there too. So I guess the reason I drive down this road a little bit, I was just wondering if there's a cost savings by looking at having this hosted by somebody other than Roundtable at one of those facilities like I just mentioned there. I know
The
that
backup portion of it only costs us about, the backup is, well, let me do the math real quick. About $495 a month is the backup cost. That would be, we could hire someone else to do our backup, but it just makes sense for them to do it and turn.
No, sure, I understand it.
So, and that part of it's, not,
The significant of the 50. It's
Right.
$6 grand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
$6,000. All right.
that part of it is not what we're talking about with the software itself.
This item, Diane made the point, are we interested in keeping this here or as a future discussion item for the fund balance scenario that she made mention of? It's a one-time expenditure associated with that, and 10-year life on that?
We've gotten 8 out of where we're at now.
Right.
I'll be honest, I rely on those guys, so I don't keep track with how fast, I don't even know what version.
Let me ask the loaded question then. Is it something that needs to be done this year?
I would say so, based on the direction that we've received in terms of consolidation with the PD and getting that.
That's the bigger issue, is it's holding up other pieces to that progression, okay.
5 to 7 years seems to be a lifespan. This is just me chiming in on my own
Yep.
personal experience. 5 to 7 years, I think, is 5 is probably optimal for rotating out. 7, I think, is something that you can say to yourself, we could probably live on borrowed time for 2 years. I think we're pushing, 8, closing in on 9. I think for me, that sends up some real big warning signs. That being said, I don't necessarily know I'm super excited about ponying it up thinking we're going to get another 8 or 9 years out of it. I think it's just a bad strategy to go at it like that. I think we should be more aggressive. This technology is our backbone. And if we treat it like, let's just try to stretch it out for 8 or 9, it's not going to be a matter of if, it's going to be a matter of when that thing comes back and bites us right in the can.
Well, even if we would shorten it down to a 5-year time frame, I mean,
Yeah.
the hosted solution is an $80,000 option versus just
The
plan
50
on in
outright.
5 years spending another 50.
Right.
So, using that logic, Norm, quite specifically, I guess, with you, then fund balance or fund it? I
I
don't.
think it's a one-time, so I think if we're going back to what Diane said, we definitely could go fund balance this time, but I just think if we're going to do that, let's be more aggressive in our looking down the road and not say,
What's the intention?
yeah.
And you'll have some money next year because we won't be funding as much of the trio.
And Ryan,
So-
could we scale, I know,
You could
forgive
put
me.
that in.
Yeah, I want to go
We
back to
can't-
that list.
Can we scale back?
Is this me or is it feedback?
It seems like a hot mic.
Yeah,
Like-
it's squeaky.
Let's get back in.
Let's kill that one and share one.
All right, I'll shut this one down.
My ear's ringing, you gotta be feeling it.
I hear it from here.
Yeah, that particular layout, is there anything that could be backed off of that list at all, or nothing substantial?
No, I mean, it's Exchange server, the Exchange server user licenses, basically. It's Microsoft Server Standard, and that's only $700.
Right.
And then it's Office 2016 is the big chunk, because we're on, some of them are, we don't know what license we're actually functioning off from. for-
Standardization as well as trying to get
Correct.
everybody on one platform.
And what it is, I mean, the Office there's 70 users between everyone in town.
That was the other piece, how many people we're talking.
And it's based on 70 users. The
Where do
the
you guys
biggest-
want to live? Do you want to budget it here or fund balance discussion, knowing that we get a lot of future discussions associated with where we settle with fund balance? Let's pull the chicken shit move and put it on the fund balance future discussion list.
Well said.
I think maybe following up Norm's
Hey,
point,
can I-
it might be a good idea to establish like a reserve account like we have for the
Yeah,
fire department.
yeah,
put
no,
in
no.
20,000
Try to
every
minimize
year,
the
so we
bumps
have-
in the road
So
moving
we have,
forward.
a little bit saved up when we hit that next, 5 years from
I
now.
wanna see that quotes tomorrow in the paper.
Right. She would have been sitting on the side I didn't see, so it would have been still said, so.
Okay.
Back to all of the software agreements. We went from the, is it 165 to 191? Yeah. There's things comparing the two lists. Full town support was a $15,000 increase this year.
That actually resulted in an overall decrease because it was originally PD had their own support and then the town had a separate support. And in total last year, we were spending 58,000 and change.
So it was in a different line item.
They were both, it should have been in both, I think I've got last year's budget right here.
I know I got
I
mine
know
too.
where you're going with this increase. They didn't charge us the full 87
Right.
in the first year because we were able to subtract what we were paying for Trio. So that's where a big part of your increase is.
Right, and that was 21K. That was what I was just trying to go down through, is what am I missing associated with what we're looking at this year?
That's full freight for Munis, right?
But what you're saying on that is that 87 is the worst-case scenario, because
That,
You'll
no,
be put-
that's gonna be the Munis, 87. It's the Harris, the 19841 is what is gonna change, which is the Trio.
trio.
Yeah, because that's gonna decrease. 'cause
That's
we're-
gonna
we're
decrease,
relying
once
on
I
that
figure
less and
out
less.
how much I have to use their modules when we make the changeover. Like payroll, we're not gonna change over till January, so I need to buy that for at least 6 months.
Are we hanging on to the
We're-
registration and stuff?
Yeah, we're hanging on to
And
the
that's
motor
gonna be a
vehicle.
perpetual, that one's not going away.
No,
Okay, I just wanna make
And
sure.
not right now it isn't, no.
You might get somebody to give you a better recommendation than I have on the taxation part of it. But I just have not heard anything good from Munis's module. That's my bias in the system associated with that, so
What do you mean, tax collections? Or do
Yeah,
you mean the
they've-
assessing?
assessing.
The assessing is staying
It
with
stays,
Trio,
it's gonna stay with Trio anyways, that's one of
but
the
the
things.
collections part is gonna be with Munis.
Okay.
And
Okay,
the billing.
so essentially, when the dust settles, we're looking at something that's gonna be archive and
Yep.
assessing.
Yep.
Okay.
And motor vehicle.
recording software, are they redundant? Why are we not, we're on a voice override IP, right?
Correct. We were transitioning, I think when this budget was put together, we hadn't made the full switch to Oxford. I'm not 100% positive on that PD side of it. But they've just started doing recordings over there.
We need to check on that.
So if-
Well,
if
by my
we are,
understanding,
yeah.
on a voice override IP, it is cheaper to tape everything for 100% of your phone infrastructure than to deal with the piecemeal. Sharing dirty laundry associated with Lewiston now, the fact is, it's more expensive because the way that we pieced it together, it's less expense to actually tape 100% of everything. So if you had a water and sewer constituent complaint, or somebody pissed off about potholes, you got all that information taped the minute it comes through the IP address, rather than having something standalone that requires additional hardware. So it seems to me, looking at the two, with the PD piece and the Acorn piece, they're redundant. I would go through Oxford to see what they could do to get it all.
Oxford is doing the recording for them now. I'm not 100% positive what the need for the Acorn is, if we still have to maintain the license for the stuff that we already have, or what. That's something I
That's
need to
exactly it.
clear.
See if it's archival. I bet you that's what
Need
it
to
is.
Clear that up.
Well, perfect.
I
So
bet
that
you,
make 'em
I bet you any money, the reason that they probably have to hang on that is for licensing to be able to pull previous calls. And if that's not the case, they may contractually still be required to hold that, information without, we might not have to pay any sort of
Credit
maintenance fee.
expenditure.
This could be just be a maintenance fee for that
And
arcade.
I'll just have to double check that.
Yeah, we find out if it's something that we don't have to hang on to, that'd be fine.
Town, town hall streams, is that the council meetings that we talked about?
That was the cost for them to basically mount a camera.
For live stream.
Yep.
Didn't we lose, with the channel, didn't I see that email today? I think that we're not gonna go, or we're not gonna be, our particular broadcast here aren't gonna be on cable anymore. That email came out today.
I didn't see that.
Am I losing my mind?
Oh, were you talking about the time,
Yeah.
Great Falls?
Great Fault, why, was that that
7,
channel in there?
public access 7?
Yeah, I saw
We're
that.
paying, that's in our contract, we have
We'll
to,
have to look at that again. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I saw that today, right before I came to this meeting. Something about that not being out there anymore. I won't hijack this with that, but
Yeah.
maybe we wanna, while we're thinking and while we're talking about this
they
particular
can't,
piece.
because that's in our contract, they have to provide that. I'm wondering if it's different.
And I could have just skimmed it quick, but I saw that and I was like, I gotta bring that up tonight when I get there.
I think they're not hosting it on the Great Falls site.
Is that what it is?
Are you talking about the Time Warner thing that I sent
Yes,
out?
yes.
Yeah, that's totally different than,
It's independent of, okay.
Is that for
Then
live
maybe-
streams?
I'm gonna, I'll check it
Sorry, I was
though.
just,
No, that's okay.
Side
But this is
question.
for live stream, so no, if we're there, it's not a bad thing.
Right. To be clear on that, that streams could be all meetings. School committee, planning board, whatever meeting associated with that, that's an expenditure that covers everyone.
It's a
Under-
all, yep, 100%. And basically, you would set up the schedule. I mean, you could have it set up that it's 7 o'clock, that thing starts recording, period. Or it could be that, Tyler flips a switch and it starts recording. There's all kinds of flexibility with it. Andy archives things it's available afterwards on the, I don't know about that. It's available right afterwards online as well, so it's one of those, there it is. It's $250 a month. On-demand playback available for a period of 5 years. And they'll authorize persons to download one digital copy for any use. So basically, we could download one to save here for the archive or whatever. But he supplies all the equipment, he comes and sets it up.
That's my next question. I was
If
like,
something,
something goes wrong, he owns that?
Yep.
When I say he,
it is he.
okay, I was gonna say, what would the contract look like? What are and this may be deep.
12-month
deep dive.
period, the warranty is a lifetime or length of the contract. Payment can be made via automatic withdrawal or check.
What's the
I don't know,
turnaround time? Camera dies, how quickly can you get that? Is there anything contractual in there?
He doesn't
That's
say.
I didn't think it would be there, but it's something we can look into. If we-
But it would be, if it dies, he's responsible. And what we've done is, because we've now transitioned the PD over to Oxford Networks, but we've maintained our Time Warner access point here, and eventually, and maybe as part of the server software upgrade, we'll build in that redundancy for connectivity. But at the same time, we would probably put him on the Time Warner connection and keep him separate from the rest of our network, so. That was kind of I'm sure there's other games in town, we'll more than likely have to put this out to bid, but, I did notice the Great Falls even, I think it was an Auburn meeting, they started streaming live at one
So
point.
maybe
so
something
I'm not sure, and I don't, I mean, I talked to them initially, and at the time, they weren't warm and fuzzy in how they were gonna approach that, so. It seems
Right.
like now we've had enough time since we initially talked to them that they can maybe start rolling.
Okay, so the 191 is gonna be a future discussion to look at where Harris is gonna live for Trio, the recording software. And everything else is as it is. The key piece that would be Munis is more expensive. And the Streams is gonna be $3,000. Okay. That and the computer equipment with the 50K future discussion, I think, does that complete us for that division? I'm seeing nobody nodding.
Well, before I do that, I know it was only 6K, and then for the backup. Well, what would it entail for us to do the backups ourselves? What does it look like? What are we doing for the backups here? We're talking just going in, we're gonna have a backup, certainly that we're gonna.
Right now, we have a device, Dado device or whatever it is, that
Yeah.
backs up here, but then that's pushed also to the cloud. I don't know, we've never,
We've never contemplated.
no, I know the backup from Roundtable is about half of what we were paying with our previous vendor.
Right. And, but, yeah, I'm just trying to think if we took it on, let me ask you a question. If we took that
Who's
on
gonna
our
take
own,
it
it
on?
would be you, wouldn't it? Would it be you?
I hope not.
Well, no, the reason I say that, realistically, who's the only one that's trained here that could probably pull that off? You?
I can neither confirm or deny.
The reason I say that, right, I don't wanna put one more thing on
Right.
your plate, especially if, we're getting a reason, like you said, it's half what we're paying before.
Right.
But I'm trying to look at everything.
No, I
that's all.
understand.
Yeah. All
I
right,
really don't know what would be included, what would be all of that.
that's fine, that's fine. All right, we're gonna come back anyway and talk about it when we get done.
No, it's good. I'd like to come to the same goal of live closer to the 165 as best we can. We know the 3,000 is something that we bought into based on the test for the, so the Meet the Candidates night that we did the live stream?
Mhm.
The feedback associated with that and trying to boost participation.
It seemed to be a
I
pretty good
think
fit.
I think it's a small amount to pay for a test.
Value
If
add.
it doesn't work, we don't add it next year, but at least we've got an idea to be able to base it on. Unless we have to sign, whatever the length of the contract that they're willing to sign. Anything else for this division, guys? All right, buildings.
One of the new lines this year is the Siemens energy audit. That's referenced in here under professional services. I don't know if this is on there. Is it on the printout?
It's on the new one that I just gave them. Yep. 6,500. It's on this, the budget. Which
Budget ordinance,
requested.
330, page 1, I think. it
Page
is.
2, it's on.
Yeah.
Is that the account number, 6,500?
Yeah, that's what I was looking for, so I don't think it's.
I
I'm sorry, the
Amount
account
six-
number is 5258.
That's what I thought.
I have two of them.
Thank you. Yep.
Are we
so
looking at the 330 or the 411?
You're gonna look at
The
the.
330 is
Okay.
one. Or is it-
55, what was that again?
5258.
5250.
Now
It's on
we-
page 2.
That's a contractual obligation based on the QECB project for them to come in and do the measurement and verification
Heard from the bottom.
each year. And that's split up, I don't remember the percentage, but part of it you see here, the other part's in the sewer department budget.
That's the 12436, right? Am I looking at the right one?
No, 6,500.
6,500 under account 5258, professional services.
Near the bottom. Go down near the bottom. Keep going, keep going, keep going.
You're looking at-
They're not in order.
I'm looking at 5228, I'm on 330.
You're not on the right, you're on the
On the right.
revenue.
Ah.
The thicker one.
So I looked at
That's not
330
the
up in
right
the.
one either.
Refreshing my memory, that was the one that we weren't sure if it was
Not this
something we
one?
had to pay every year?
Correct.
Thought it was
Here?
a one-time fee?
It is.
That was the
It's
one.
an annual fee, it's when,
Right.
contract document.
I got it. Second page towards,
All good.
towards the bottom. Woo-hoo.
So
I'm like looking at,
what we didn't do in this
582
current year
now.
budget is we didn't take into account that contract was gonna kick in this year. So we didn't budget it in the current year, but what we also didn't budget was the revenue we're getting back from the IRS, which is about 22,000, or for this budget, it's 16,000, the rest of it goes to the sewer. So that's not even in the revenues either. And you'll see on my new sheets for the new budget we're working on, I have budgeted the revenue, estimated revenue, and we've budgeted the expense. So we will get the revenue in to cover this year's payment. It's not built in this current budget, and neither is the expense. But what we get in for revenue will cover the expense. And it was all part of the funding package when we went through Siemens. That was all taken into consideration. I just didn't realize that the audit part was a separate contract with a separate bill, because this is the first year we've gotten it. But it was all part of that funding package.
Okay, so in reality, this year, we'll see both sides of it. We'll see the expenditure and we'll see the revenue versus this year, when the dust settles, we'll have a net increase on the revenue side that ultimately roll to fund balance.
Yeah.
Okay. I buy that. Short version is, we're not getting as much as we thought we were getting from the contract, but it is what it is.
Are there any specific lines, and
I'm nitpicky as hell, and so let's just go down
let's go to the bottom then, and
No, I'm working my way up. This one's for Diane. Workers' compensation. We're looking at a budgeted estimate of $312, and I'll retract that question, because I said we spent 15. No, we have 15 left in the account. You're good. You get that one. Electricity.
based on the average bills per month, we're averaging about $4,000 a month. That's why we put it to 48,000.
Is that any one location that's
That's
actually
just-
driving that
That
worse?
is everything.
Your rate's gone up, or has your usage gone up?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna actually get into. Is there one specific building that's actually
anybody talk to Kathy?
sucking worse than last year?
CMP's rates did go up.
There
As
is
of January
some of it.
1st, CMP's rates increased.
We might wanna relook at this once we get the bills in from our new standard offer supplier, to see where we fall. So I think you're gonna see some of the electric bills are going down, cause I locked in for 18 months.
Yeah,
So when you say going down, I know it's hard telling not knowing, but are we talking what, 10, 15, 20?
I don't know. There's,
Did they
the
give a rate that
changeover
would then
happened
equate
at the
to?
end of February, so we haven't gotten all the new bills in, so
Okay.
once we get those.
So we really haven't, we haven't really kind of seen any rate from them to
I think you're
start
still gonna see an
speculating what we might-
increase here, but I don't know
Yeah.
if it'll be that much. And it still may be, but
Okay.
I wanna check with Brenda.
But right now,
I wanna,
and if we could, I'd like to know how we stand by location.
We can do that.
If it just, I know you have it.
Yep, I
In
just,
that regard, is because even if the rate's gone down, if consumption's gone up, the question becomes why. I can explain this year to last year because it's been colder this year versus the non-winter last year. But if you look over the 3-year trend, I wanna know if we're up and if there's something we can control.
Turn off the lights if you're not using it.
that's it.
You see me do it on the way out through here.
Yeah, but even if you turn off the lights, it doesn't mean
Oh, I know.
anything that has a light is generating.
anything that's plugged in, whether it's on
Anything.
or off,
Right.
it's generating.
Is there anything that says what the actual amount that was used last year?
we've got we're in 2000,
You look at the kilowatts, you look at
16,
the.
No,
Dollars?
dollars, yeah.
Chris?
I think
Yes.
that'd be a compliment.
Actually, I can give you last year's.
I didn't use
article.
any of the reports that Diane had, because I liked the one from that she gave us, the last one.
How much-
2016's actual was 44,566.
In the 8-year actual is 53,000.
Didn't ask you for the other one, the one because.
8-year actual is 53,000,
I'm
you said?
looking at it on Monday, it's not fair to you. I've had it 2 weeks. But, yeah, and before that, it was 56,000. You know, so we went from 56 to 44, and now we've basically got 14 left, so we're gonna be above the 41. It's just, what's.
If you go
what's
back,
going-
we had a high in '10 of, a high in 10 of 60,000. Following year, it dropped down to 43.
What did we do to change? Did we make a concentrated effort to kind of focus on?
10 and 11?
Because if it was 60 then, and we've dropped down to 40, we must be doing something right.
That do streetlights and everything too? Is that
That
every-
is strictly town buildings.
just buildings? That's what I thought.
Streetlights are,
Different story.
Okay.
yeah, I mean, like I said, the 8-year average is 53.
The rates have come down.
We did a
somewhat
crud
since
load
then.
of increases in the efficiency at MTM specifically. That, can't tell you the time frame, but everything that you put into that building, from the boiler through the windows to everything else, it's not costing anyways what it used to.
Those are improvements.
We left the heating oil and the natural gas the same, just based on how we were trending. I think they're gonna be a little bit, we're gonna be on the good side as far as those are concerned. But I guess now's a good time to at least broach the subject of natural gas at the library and the fire station in the Falls. As part of the downtown work, Unitil's looks like they've got a lot of people on board, and it's gonna be an opportunity for us to potentially connect to them this summer. Working with the boiler guys to get some prices on retrofitting what we have, and also providing costs to replace if that's a more cost-effective option based on what the equipment is. So, hope to have that stuff for the council meeting on Tuesday night. But
Okay.
I think all that we need to have from the council is gonna be a commitment to move forward with natural gas, and then we don't necessarily have Unitil's. We're hearing that it's based on the volume of people that are gonna connect, the cost to connect it may be zero, but we'll still have a cost in the buildings to make it work.
So cost shifting then, we'd see obviously the heating, oil would be decreased. We'd see a small uptick though in natural gas because of the initial kickoff, then after that, the idea would be that it would level out over time?
Yes, but you'd still, at a higher rate. And, I believe, I'm shooting from the hip a little bit, but I'm quite certain that it's pretty much only, nope, the village is still on oil, but most every building in town would then be on natural gas. And just another aside, we did, looking at the oil usage, we dropped about 200 gallons a month at the fire station after we insulated that hose tower. Looking at the December consumption was about 600 gallons, and it's hard to tell just based on weather and everything else, but the month after that was 200 gallons less, and then that seemed to hold pretty consistent for the following month, so. I can't imagine it's all that, but it
Didn't
definitely
hurt.
seemed,
Didn't hurt.
Didn't hurt.
Unemployment looked odd. We budgeted 381 last year, 363 still available. One part-time person. Is that estimate of 341 realistic? Can you just look at that?
I'll check it.
Or maybe possibly explain why there's no history this year, I guess would be the question. I can't imagine it's going anywhere else, because it's the only place he works. Electricity, I'm good, we'll take care of that at a later date for sure.
I think the phone account may still be up in the air in terms of appropriate budget amount. We've just started getting our Bay Ring
Thank you.
bills.
That was where it's headed.
They're kind of all over the place, and we've gotta sit down with them anyway, cause we have some back charges that they started charging us before the system was even installed, so we have some things we have to work out through them. But I think that number may need to be adjusted up. So-
Based on when you would have had to pull telephone numbers together to get to this budget point, maybe you can just work with Diane and give us the highlights for that future meeting, buy us you a little time in that'd be June timeframe? Can you do that just globally?
Mhm.
That was where I was headed next. Sewer, obviously it doesn't include the rate increase, and you got all the town buildings, so that's gonna obviously have to
That's
be
just
addressed.
this, yeah, yes. I think this is just this building here, this
Mhm.
budget.
Okay.
We'll
And then-
adjust those rates, those accounts, once we know what you wanna
Settle on for a rate.
settle on for a rate. We have a recommendation, so,
Is that part of this tonight, or is that,
yes.
Pardon, I was looking ahead, sorry.
Yeah, that's when you get to the sewer budget.
sewer?
Oh,
All right,
sorry.
All right, that's 10 o'clock.
Jumping, yeah, Alan's trying to rush your meeting. He's going for the under tonight.
Right, make a push, nobody wins.
The last lines are pretty much, I hate to say the best guess, but really, they're turning out to be best guess based on what we've been spending on building stuff. Even though we went through and we made some major improvements town-wide, we still have some old buildings and we still have some major question marks. And 385 Lisbon Road being one of them that we've talked about before, as well as we do, this building itself, this one right here is, I mean, we still think it's a new building, but PD's requested that we look at replacing carpets and everything, because it is I mean, the occupancy was 99, 2000 timeframe, I believe. So I think some of the buildings we still have left are maintenance killers. We also, the last two lines, there's $20,000 there for the MTM generator, as well as $20,000 for equipment. And those were originally slated for some improvements to these heat exchangers as necessary. But we do have an issue at the MTM center where one of the boilers is not functional right now. It died this winter. It's about an $8,000 fix. And that was gonna be something that we've had to wait and put off until next year. Luckily, we have dual boilers. And I think it may even stem back to the fact that when the system first went online, they weren't set up to alternate correctly, so one of them ran a lot more at the beginning. The failure that was found was they tried to go back through warranty and it was out of the warranty at this point, so it's an item that needs to be replaced. We got two prices and they're both like within $150, $200 of each other. But that was gonna be if there was any money left over this year, maybe, but it's not looking like that's gonna be the case, so it'll be in next year's budget.
Tell me about the emergency standby generator for the MTM Community Center or high school. You said the MTM Community Center, so this is not the same generator that we're talking about for the high
That's the
school?
pad.
Yeah, that's the pad, right?
That we're paying out of fund balance.
So that's we're talking for the high school though, for the,
We are, but we had a discussion with Lisa, and we thought,
it might be at the MTM
it
center.
might be, but I think it's gonna stay at the high school.
Well, that's what I
So,
thought, and I just seen that language was throwing me off, and I just wanted to understand if
Yeah.
it's the same,
Yeah,
one and the same,
no,
it
it's
sounds
gonna
like
be
it
at
is.
the, high school.
Great.
Okay, but that 20 grand, I thought we voted at the previous meeting with Lisa that we committed to the 20 grand to be able to pay for the pad out of fund balance, so
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Can-
on
I thought
there.
too.
can that come out of this?
That, you read my mind, that's what I was looking at.
That 40 go to 20? But
Right, it's on this list for most everything that's on this list is in the budget.
Okay, so we
So
haven't cut it
You
here.
haven't cut it here to fund it there. Once you decide you're gonna fund it there, then I can remove it out of here.
Okay, so what I think we're doing is different. We were thinking of cutting it here, but you're saying it's gonna go, I don't care where it gets, if as long as it's just in one column and not in two.
I heard
Right.
difference in the fact that she's looking for a commitment.
Yeah.
I thought we had a commitment at the last meeting that 20 grand was coming out of fund balance, that could come off here.
That's the
Oh,
way I understood
okay, I
it, yeah.
misunderstood that.
Yes,
So
that
you
that
are
was,
gonna take
that,
it out of fund
that one they
balance?
committed to,
Okay,
Yeah,
yes. So that, but re-explore for me. 40 to 20, you have 8,000 of that for one specific item.
At this stage of the game, I wouldn't cut the town buildings budget at all. I mean, like I said, until there's still, in my mind, tons of unanswered questions in terms of, like again, 385 Lisbon Road, storage issues that we have here and at Public Works and other locations, and then just in general, I mean, not knowing what our, not having a full game plan, I guess, on building needs moving forward. I'm a little leery, especially it seemed like this year. I mean, I don't have it with me, but I think that the town buildings budget's right on the hairy edge.
Okay.
Being under budget.
Can you, again, for that future meeting in the June timeframe, come up with a list of target projects? Because what you gave us last year, pull it out of the binder, it was very clear. We were gonna do this, we were gonna do that, and that, and that. It was a
Well,
shopping list.
I've got a bucket list for sure, and some of it includes unknowns. We've got the PD carpets, the E.T. Smith floor, some of that stuff I've got to get some better
Right.
numbers on. But we've got panel replacements at MTM Center for about $6,000. Some other work at MTM in terms of cleaning up just the cabling, because when the school was there, I mean, there's Cat5 cables everywhere in that entire building. That we've had different Seco security through there, we've had our tech guys through there, and that area for, they're telling us for a few $1,000s, we could really rewire it and be done with the
Okay.
mess that we're dealing with. We've got a 40 years estimate of around $2,200, $2,500 to come through, change all the locks here at the town office that haven't been, I mean, they've been kind of hodgepodge as people have left, but basically start over with a new master key system on the town office side. PD, I believe, did a majority of their work recently on that side of the building. And then we have a report from Calderwood Engineers that looked at this building and why that end of the building seems to be pulling away from the rest of the building. And their only recommendation is that we need to spend more money on engineering to determine a fix. But that there's definitely problems with how that was constructed. So there's, I think I have the estimate here from them on what was needed for additional work. Just bear with me a second.
What was the original?
They're talking around $5,000 to do additional engineering to determine the fix, and that's basically ties from the center of the building back out to the corner to keep it from bowing out.
Okay.
So that's why, I mean, there really are a bunch of unknowns. There's a bunch of stuff that we just know that needs to get done, but I'm not 100% certain what the priorities are, and that's kind of
So
hoping that.
I'm gonna put you on the spot. You've
Sure.
made the cutting nothing on this budget. If that's the case, I'm hearing the fact is the 20 grand that we're talking about, you would put it up into the other line of repairs and maintenance? If you were,
Yeah, because that gives us the most flexibility on where we would use that.
okay. I think we're probably comfortable living there for a future discussion, but what we need from you is a one-page list of what we hope to be able to tackle to come up with what that 70 grand is gonna look like to be able to address some of the issues that you're creeping with.
Okay.
I mean, I know we're hearing a long laundry list, and some of these, like the one you talked about with the pulling apart, that was in the workshop, and one of your other presentations, just seeing it with estimates of what we can get done for that kind of scratch.
Okay.
Piggybacking on that, I'm not trying to grill you, I'm just trying to be, understand a little bit better. Some of the things that you mentioned right now, such as the new master key system and cabling updates, that's already under the 5340 repair and maintenance buildings. But, yeah, our talk is to try to, if you're saying not to cut the budget and move that 20K that we were talking about cutting from 5410 equipment and move it up to 5345 repair and maintenance equipment. Some of those projects that we talked about to cover in 5345 are actually being covered in 5340. Did I follow that logic?
Yes.
Anybody else with me there on that?
I heard you.
Okay,
5345 is the repair and maintenance equipment line,
right.
and that is our maintenance agreement, with our HVAC, as well as all our sprinklers and that sort of stuff. That's the when we're talking about replacing the boiler, replacing items here, that would come out of the 5410 line.
Yeah, and so, Alan just had said, that's why I was trying to follow the ball. So the 20K that we talked about moving from there, he had said, so you want us to move it up to the 30K line, and there was a agree, yes, or want to move it. But the projects that we were talking about, that you had mentioned specifically, were actually in the 5340 line, so wouldn't we want
I'm
to move
sorry,
that?
yes, the money.
Wouldn't we want to move that 20 up to the 50,000 line, and increase that to
Yes.
70 and not?
Yes.
Okay, that's
Yes.
Yes.
good, that's it.
Yeah.
And what I would, actually, what I'd add to your homework assignment for the June timeframe is I'd like to know, not only are we gonna be to get for, out of the repairs and maintenance line for 70 grand, but what are we paying for out of equipment that costs us 20? Give us a full accounting the best you can to justify that.
Out of the 5345?
5410 as well.
5410, okay.
Cause one of them's been 8 grand, you mentioned it, but what are the target
The other ones that
items?
we had budgeted for, just off,
Yep.
that I know, is that we budgeted, they're about $8,000 apiece. Each
For
time
air
we've lost an air exchanger.
Yeah.
We've lost 3 of them so far, we still have 4 more to go.
Okay.
And that's, we didn't plan to, I guess we didn't have a proactive plan to replace them, that we were more,
And I heard
Trying to
something
live in
about
the-
the time, the fact is, the specs on it, they were inferior for what they were supposed to be from the Siemens report.
So are we, not saying that we're at a point in this budget, but are we in a place where we wanna start talking about, rather than keep throwing money at the problem, talk about a long-term fix somewhere in the very near future?
the guys that have actually been working, Patriot Mechanical this year was our vendor, and they've broached a couple of different times the subject of moving to more of a heat pump solution, which would then give us much more individual control for heating and cooling of rooms. And
I'm sure they'd love to
Would
give us
be
a quote
awesome.
too. Yeah, I'm sure they'd love to give us a quote too.
yes,
If you can,
Thank you.
it's probably too late for this pony show, but if you can put a presentation for this time next year with the payback scenario for going that approach, I'd hear it.
I think it's easy to start looking at some of these $8,000 a pop heat exchangers that we're gonna have to keep. We can do some simple math on what we spent up to this point, coupled with what the savings might be. That might be all we need to kinda get to a point where we say we'll find a way to fit it into the budget for next year. No sense beating ourselves up every
Right.
time.
well, it's because quite honestly, all it's doing is fixing the heating equipment. It does not fix any of the other complaints that we hear.
Right.
Constantly.
Doesn't deal with HVAC, doesn't deal with the one you're dealing with
Noise.
in room here. Yeah, none of it.
I'm sure you'd like nothing more than to not have to stick your head up inside of these tiles and.
Notice Eddie climbs right up in there. I've seen him in action.
Real quick, where's that 20,000, where do you wanna put that?
In the 50,000 line, which is the 53 board.
And that's just a placeholder for our future discussion,
Yep.
Mr. Crawford. I'm not,
5340.
it's gonna be a hard sell to me, because something we're funding from fund balance, I don't wanna add that and charge to the 20 grand too, so.
Yeah, I'd like to see like not just a list of the projects, but also in priority order of, what's most important. If you had to say, okay, I can't fund all of it, what $10,000 do you cut out of there? Of your
That's
70
fine,
you'd like to
I'm-
have,
Comfortable doing that.
Yeah, last year's list was very helpful. It addressed all of that, we could see it right there on a one page.
Like that 385 Lisbon Street, whatever you decide to do with that, that's gonna be a one-time deal, which you could fund through fund balance.
Well,
You know what I mean?
it's a good point on the 385, because, I mean,
That's-
it's on the punch list that the only line item that it's actually gonna fall under is this division. So it is one of the items that specifically came out in a couple of different departments with the need for space. So obviously it's a need, so, yeah. I'm sensitive to what was actually heard in the January timeframe, because if we're asking you to know what the punch list of items are, we ought to at least be able to address some of them.
How many heat exchangers did we replace last year?
One. One.
How many in the last 3?
3. Because we did the one big one out front as part of the QECB project, and then we did my wing, and we did Diane's wing.
I thought we did one in the police department too.
We haven't done any at them yet.
Oh, we did
them
do
yet.
one down
No.
there.
About $8 grand a pop on average?
Yeah, like the one out front was 10,
Okay,
and
so
then,
the other two were a little bit, so when you average
yeah, I
them
know,
out.
quite honestly, the last one we did was significantly less.
Okay.
I mean, I think may have even been on like the 5 to 6 range, but they're all based on size too.
I'm just looking at it, so if I'm looking at that, I'm going back to that 5410 because I'm living there, because I'm just looking at that. If we back up the 20 that was meant for the cement pad, we move that into the repair and maintenance building, and that makes perfect sense, because I know you're gonna work on that list for us. But then I ask myself, the only thing that looks like that's left there would be this line is for replacement of heat exchangers at the town office as necessary. So if I'm saying to myself, we use 8, we'll average high, 8, so that right there for 20K is at least 2 exchangers, and we're on average replacing
And the-
1.
and the
I
other
don't wanna
item-
leave us thin, but if it's 16, let's just say we go high and we go for 2, that's still 4K that we can find, that we can shake out somewhere else. I'm just trying to put that,
When you talk wings, can we do any of the discussion associated with heat pumps and the police wing without changing the entire system for the entire building?
My understanding is that the installations that they've done in the past, they were very similar situation here. They're an insert to these, so I think that they still cycle in the fresh air, and I'm really spitballing right here based on just our
Yeah, yeah.
conversations, but I think they still cycle in the fresh air through their existing ductwork, through just fans instead of any heaters or coolers. But then they put the big unit up in the attic, which provides, when we're talking about heat pumps, you've seen the ones on the outside of the building, Public Works Garage is a prime example. All those, or the library, all those condensing units have to be mounted outside. They can also mount them up in that space, and then they just have to provide a drain outside for them.
So, if we're replacing an $8,000 air handler, is there any benefit to trying to put heat pump in a certain area to address it, or does it not work with it in tandem with the rest of the system?
I'd have to have them weigh in on that.
Could you?
Yeah. They've already,
Could-
they're the
I mean,
first ones to bring that
If
to me.
it's something we could phase in,
Yep.
it just seems move in that direction without spending more money off the bat. Trying to be proactive. And anything that justifies their sales pitch.
Wow, and honestly, the PD may be the best guinea pig for those,
Right.
because this,
It's the one
other
you-
than the comm center, the other 2 areas they're much smaller units.
Okay.
And quite honestly, our goal is to get, I'm just thinking out loud here, but fire chief's office is off the same system as the comm center, so his is always an ice box, because they leave, they're trying to drive the temperature down in the comm center, because it's usually too warm, which is why they had their own air conditioner in there as well. But that may be a good way to see if we can get Sean some heat, and how that would work, so.
Okay.
I can look at that more.
Buys you some time to at least have the dialogue with a few folks.
thank you, I know that's a lot of moving parts there.
Is everybody comfortable with the dialogue? Anything else on this division? PW?
Am I allowed to ask a question?
Sure, Dot.
Um,
Just one.
You're talking about the furnaces, isn't didn't the town office and the MTM center convert to natural gas?
Town office has been natural gas since the building was constructed.
Yes.
We didn't have natural gas here at the time.
Yes,
We did,
yes.
went through.
This is one of the few places where it actually went through, because it's only on 196.
It's right out front here when it first came through.
Right.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
But
MTM was
The
converted.
furnace at the
Yeah,
MTM
a couple of
center,
years, only a couple of years ago.
Is that on natural gas? Because they had to be converted from oil to natural gas. I'm just wondering who maintains the furnaces, whatever.
to answer your
It was
question,
natural-
Ryan did say that, yes, they are on natural gas. They are, who does the
Siemens
ma-
was it's been
It's the same contract
Labor of the
with
year.
Patriot.
We had mechanical services at one point, we had Siemens, and
This year is
last year
Patriot.
we went out to bid again. We had Siemens for a couple of years, and this last year we went out to bid, and Patriot Mechanical is the company that we've
We
been
do
using.
all of the furnaces for all of the town
Correct.
buildings.
Yes.
Kind of another comment, question. you mentioned all of the buildings, town buildings going to natural gas. Does natural gas go down Village Street to the fire department?
No, that was the one that it would remain oil. Beaver Park would, they're propane anyway.
Thank you.
No, and at present, it doesn't actually even go up Main Street, but
No.
this dialogue is enough interest to be able to do that connection.
Right, we've been talking about that for 5 years or
Yes.
so, getting it up there.
We set the funds aside for that discussion. Cover that later, though. That was another conversation.
Thank you.
You're welcome. PW.
Oh, where do we start?
When you kick off like that makes me nervous.
I just don't know where the, what's the preference? Where to go line by line, or is there a place you'd
Yeah, I
rather
had
start?
all kinds of notes to self coming down the list, so
I figured.
let's start at the top and,
Well, pretty much, everything from 5101 down through to about uniforms and safety, I guess other than professional development, is, all just wages, benefits
Okay.
based. I don't know if there's any questions on those.
where, yeah, 5110,
Yep.
where do you get your, figure for the 356 with, we're still looking at 102 left? Is that allowing for the spring work, and I'm missing that this costs more than I would think with 4 months?
The wage line is based on our current staffing
12 months.
rates,
Right.
based on who we have on staff currently and what their wages are, based on a full year.
Okay, so,
We've
yeah,
switched
so
over now.
there
for
is
the-
4 months yet, so,
Yeah.
okay.
I was
I
just
think-
looking at the date of that, because
The question that's troubling me on that is, and it's a winter budget question that's gonna tie into it. Are you factoring only in snow ops overtime because you're budgeting for 40 hours no matter what they do under PW? So
Yes.
you're not getting a true accounting of what it costs for snow here?
Winter operations historically is just budgeted for
Overtime.
the overtime amount.
Anything that's, right. Okay, so a 13-week winter season, no matter what they're doing, it's going to PW to begin with?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Nothing new there. Where I was going with it is the heartburn associated with adding 50 grand to talk about sidewalks later, and there's no savings associated with that. So we'll float that lead balloon later.
That's not encouraging. No.
Okay, I'm good with that. Overtime?
Overtime, per the union contract, we're obligated to pay approximately $22,000 a year in overtime. It's based on, there's a person on call year-round, after hours. They carry, they have a cell phone that's set up that the cell phone pretty much lives at the garage, and emergency calls are forwarded to that cell phone, which then they set it up to forward to their own personal cell phone because they don't want to carry two.
Okay.
And that's, per the contract, says that when they're on call, they get 3 hours of straight time pay for every day that they're, every evening that they're on call, I guess. I'd have to look up the exact language, but it's based on a 3 hours of straight time pay per employee.
Call out's a 2-hour overtime, and that's what it equates to.
Right.
Works the same for us.
So, using your logic, 22K of that is contract related. FY17, you estimated 4,600 in additional, and now we're going to 30. What changed? Is that
Moxie.
Moxie's got more overtime associated with that than historic?
We were being reimbursed for it at one point
From,
from the Moxie Festival.
From the Moxie revenue.
The revenue reimbursed our overtime for a couple of years, and then that was stopped. It's not just Moxie, I mean, that's providing,
Just
that's
that's a
providing.
chunk, that's a
Right,
chunk. I
but that's
remember you-
providing for any summer overtime that occurs, actual overtime. The 22,000 is, they get paid.
Contract.
They get paid it if they show up or not.
Yeah.
But even when, and then when they show up, they still get 3 hours of on-call. They get 3 hours at time and a half for every call-in. So they could be in for an hour and a half, put up barricades. They're being paid 3 hours of time and a half.
So that's, that other AK is other then?
Correct. For summer.
Yeah, no, yeah.
And that's
Yep. No, it's fair.
minimal. I mean, in the
Understand.
past, and we've cut that, and we don't do much overtime work in the summertime. There's plenty that we could be doing if we wanted a budget for it, but we haven't.
Right. Right, that's where the discussion kicked in the January timeframe is, what do you want me to be? His effect is, it's not in the budget accordingly.
You must have a lot of folks, it must be tough in the summertime too, because you get your own people trying to use up their vacation time.
I'll be honest, this might, I'll whine a little bit, the amount of time they have on those, that they can accrue for vacation. Per the contract, they can bank 180 hours of comp time, which they conceivably would earn in the wintertime. Not many people take advantage of that, so, but that's between 180 hours of comp time that you could have and 4 weeks of vacation. And we try to minimize vacations in the wintertime as much as possible.
Right, so you gotta have them somewhere.
And then they earn sick time at 10 hours a month, and that seems to burn through pretty quick too, so. But you could have a guy on vacation, guy called sick, and all of a sudden you've only got 3 guys there.
Right, and all this, yeah. It's conceivable that you got guys in overtime.
Last year, we had several days where there was only two employees, and then we'd have 2, not counting the 2 mechanics.
Okay. Thank you.
Cruising on down to anything else, or?
I'm working on it. Sorry.
Union negotiation?
I believe that's where we parked. Sorry, let Diane answer that.
Yes, union negotiation.
Well, the contract is due to be negotiated this year. We haven't even sat down to discuss what the items are on the table.
So most other years, that's just 0.
In the past, it's been used as an account for union requirements.
Disclose.
So don't say it out loud.
Am I just not understanding it?
No,
can't.
it's coming, Mr.
There's
President.
something
way.
I'm missing, because
Here
Oh.
it comes.
It's coming.
Anyway,
The bottom. We're in negotiations, that's why we can't say.
as our lawyers close, that is the sound of
Apparently Mark wants to
silence.
see it too.
Um,
Left out of the loop.
Bottom.
Moving on. Drug testing.
What kind of drugs they got?
No, they're apparently a lot, because they're over budget. Is that an anomaly, or you're already over budget now? Does the 1,200 gonna work?
The 8-year average was 1,079.
So this could be,
And I'm not 100% positive that if a sewer person gets pulled, if we're charging it to
the right.
sewer department, I'm not.
Yeah.
You have to do pre-employment drug testing, and you've had a lot of turnover in that department, so every time we hire somebody, we have to have them drug tested before they start work, so that's not just the random testing, it's any
Is
pre-employment.
random included in that?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought, I just wanted to, so you're saying that the random testing is included, and then because of the recent
Turnover.
churn, we wanna make sure that we're prepared to be able to meet that, because maybe previously we didn't fund at that level.
Right.
I got you.
Professional services.
That is broken up into Our MS4 support, which is 22,000. We budget 5,000 a year for Oliver Associates for whatever comes up in the year. We've got another 3,500 for,
Coming back to that.
another 3,500 for our GIS
Yep.
package that we have. That's used, and that one I think I need to split up between sewer and public works, so that I think I've just been budgeting in public works. We have $1,500 for our MS4 TV obligation, and then we have the hearing test and ATRC, which is our dues to the ATRC.
Will you know by June?
Should be able to. They're working on it right now.
Can you
So what I've
can you
done is-
enlighten these folks?
I've contacted Oliver, our engineer, and had a discussion with them about what steps we could take to get out of that MS4 program. So their first step is to try to figure out how we got into it. So we've engaged an attorney that is an environmental attorney that knows the MS4 program. So we tried to get the information from DEP and they didn't have it, so we had to go to EPA and get it. And right now, he's got a map in his possession and he's trying to figure out how the spaghetti legs got down into Lisbon, and that's what they're working on right now. So it could be that it was a mistake,
Well,
and if it was a mistake, we've already.
If you went by his two, and I don't like to just, interrupt you, if you went by the two reasons why Phil Rutt said we were in there, they were both fabrication. So as far as I was concerned, it was all a story.
If
That's,
it's-
Somebody do the
I mean,
math
that's
wrong.
as plain, that's as plain and simple as you can get.
Somebody put that as-
Our population was not what he said,
No.
and people per square footage, if you're already lying about how our population is, it's another story to me.
And I
Well,
mean,
that's
the map
the-
shows urban areas there that are, fields
We're running down
that
the
are,
right roads though, and I think
specifically
that we
prohibited
all
from
kind of took
development,
away.
ridiculous.
We talked about it.
We didn't get
talked
told,
about
we
it.
didn't get told no. There's cushion to get out of this.
Yeah, we
So I
should
think
push it
that-
if we can.
Well, there's two things. If it's wrong, if the calculation was wrong, we can fix it.
Well, I think
That's what DEP is telling us.
you fixed
If
calculation.
it's not, if the calculation is right, I still think we should go through and try to get out of it.
Absolutely.
So,
And
just-
go
yeah.
down that and spend the money to
Get away from it
get away from
because
it.
We're gonna spend more in the
We're
long
gonna
run if we
s-
don't.
when he
Exactly.
said, we only
We're in it
had
for
one
life.
person get away with going against it. And I said, well, how many people have gone against it?
One,
One.
100%.
So where I'm standing at, that's,
Yeah.
I'm ready to fight.
Don't think for a minute that our
We're
attorney,
just doing us.
that our attorney won't look at whatever was done in the town of
Exactly.
Bradley.
Second, this is not Dan. It is a separate
It
attorney.
is an
that is
Oh, no, I
Environmental.
completely
Environmental,
understand.
it's specialized.
That was, I'm picking up on that this was not Dan. The idea here, I think, is that even if it comes back, we go with challenging the notion that the population figure's wrong. And if they come up with some federal explanation as to why that population figure is right, then we continue to drive down that road because
And get a
We
waiver.
know it's not.
we
We
know,
should be able
we'll
to
find,
get-
we'll find a way. They may be able to go ahead and tell us that, this is this, but we'll find a way.
So
We can try and get a waiver. I mean, that's.
Absolutely.
if we are found to not, that we shouldn't have been in this, any money that we've invested in it, are they gonna give it back to us?
Yeah, it's been 4 years.
No, because we could have challenged it back then.
But
I mean, that's.
we're to tonight's discussion.
Yeah.
I want on the next June meeting, the discussion of taking this $22,000 out of this budget, so we're not putting any more bleeding in there. That would be my recommendation, so add that to your list.
$22,000?
I mean, I don't know how long the process, we should know one way or the other whether the calculations are right or wrong. Now, if they're
Right.
wrong, I don't know how long that's gonna take to get it corrected. Now's the right time to do it because we're at the end of our 5 years, is that right?
We have one more year left. in
We
the
have one
this
more
is the
year,
last
so
year.
now's the time to be starting this process.
I don't know
so.
what the rest of
And,
you guys
and,
want.
and again, as we said, there's 400 and something towns, and there's only 48 of us or whatever in this loop.
32 or 33.
Right. You would like to think that even if we were in this program, that it should be a rotation.
When-
You were in for 5 years, we got our stuff all straightened out, you're next. In 5 years, you'll have your stuff straightened out, next town, next town, next
Take
town.
it-
Not just be beaten up on the same towns forever, as they say, you could be forever.
How could Augusta not be in that equation? That was the thing that blew me away the most.
Exactly.
How Augusta could
Goffstown.
not be in that
Goffstown's
equation.
not in right here, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
Anyway,
anyway, moving on. We all know how we feel about
So,
that.
anyway, I'm working on that.
She's hopeful to have an answer by June, so I'm
Nice.
recommending the 22 grand come out of that account.
Absolutely.
yeah, I'm on board with that.
Not right now, though, I.
Correct.
We'll
No,
hold it for
I
so
get
that's
it.
June discussion. You'll know
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
discussion,
yeah.
we should have
future
a better,
discussion for June.
we should at
Lots
least
of
know what roads are
assumptions
running
is-
down by that point, I would think.
Lots of assumptions and speculations between here and then. Brian?
Rental of equipment.
The majority of that is what we intend to pay the sewer department to do the storm drain cleaning.
Who came up with $75 an hour?
Well,
We did.
Ooh.
trucks, insurances, you know how that all works. You
Well,
gotta-
I'll give you another example. And the fact is, an internal billable rate between us and sewer, Lewiston's comparable is $24.50 an hour. That would shave 10 grand
Right off the top.
right off the top of the 40 grand. I'm not on them based on the numbers in that regard. I'm looking at that saying that number is substantially inflated, in my opinion. I mean, and what it's supposed to be able to cover is just the rental of that unit. We pay for the insurance, it's budgeted underneath there, it's just
Who
the
bought the
actual.
equipment?
Well, no, the sewer, I get why they're doing it, because sewer bought the equipment, so we have to do something to be able to compensate when it actually transfers, because we do the same thing when he does excavation for other departments, it's an internal rate. I'm just saying that 75 is, that's way
Pretty sure
heavy.
we took it off from,
You rent it
FEMA.
from Lewis and I don't charge you 75.
For the grader,
It's about 38.50 if I remember correctly.
I thought it was like 125.
Didn't we used to pay, before we bought our own trucks, we pay another.
Again, you're
a
mumbling, this
contractor-
conversation's they're going nowhere.
Didn't we pay a contractor to do this at some point before we had our own
Yes.
stuff? So what did they charge us per hour?
They charged, I'd have to look back.
We
I
looked
wanna
that
say
up.
it was more like $1,500 to $2,000 a day
Right.
is what I was,
I mean, if we figure out like equivalent, you know,
yep.
trying to get.
I wanna
something
say we took it
price.
off the FEMA schedule, but I
Now,
wouldn't
the
swear to
FEMA,
it.
I get that, because you're billing to FEMA, that's an outside entity, and you're allowed the third-party rate, which is supposed to include the operator and other insurances and the other stuff, but an internal rate, that's where our VACOL is $24.50. I looked at it before I came in associated with that, quite specifically, so, 30 grand is specifically that, and I'm saying it's a third of the cost. I'm saying that 40 grand should be 20, but what have I done operationally, because you're not gonna have 20 grand in the sewer revenue side of things,
Right.
because I'm assuming it's.
We haven't ever met it either, anyway. I mean, that was
Okay.
between turnover at the sewer department,
Yeah,
same deal.
nobody to run it to begin with,
Right.
right?
But who's running that truck? Is it the sewer employees?
Oh, yes.
So that's gonna inflate the
And
price.
what generally ends up happening is that they end up doing it on Friday, which
So
ends
we're
up being an
paying
overtime day.
overtime.
Because they're at the same time, they're cleaning sewers Monday through Thursday,
Sewer needs to be
and then they're
reimbursed.
coming in, and then they're doing, storm drains they were doing them on Fridays, or then later on in the fall, when they could. Quite honestly, we had one good summer where they actually spent any significant amount of time being able to keep up with that. This last fall, we didn't get nearly as much done as we wanted to, because we were short-staffed again.
So when you figure in paying for those employees plus the benefits, which is your FICA, Medicare, and retirement, I mean, it's really doing a function for Public Works, but it's coming out of the sewer budget, so we need to have a corresponding revenue back to them. Because it's the ratepayers that are paying for the sewer budget.
Oh, I get that, but the way I would do that, I would actually charge the payroll to Ryan, but what I'm hearing in any of this discussion is that Ryan's not cross-charging any of his payroll to the other departments, so it's a push, nobody wins. I still think that it's an internal rate function and should be handled through payroll directly.
I think it ends up being, that's what, the time ends up going to, no, it doesn't.
Do you pay the payroll? It's in that $75 rate.
You don't charge off their
No.
earnings to
Like-
your,
No, and
Yeah.
this year we did with snow plowing, where we had one employee that was at the sewer, well, sometimes it was two. When they were snow plowing, their time got billed directly to Public Works through payroll.
Which,
Through the payroll account.
as it should, as it should, because that's going against the winter operation budget.
We
Right.
kept track based on when he was working for sewer versus when, in straight
Yep.
time, overtime, it didn't matter that
Yep.
way. So we're headed down that direction, but this one, I wanna say that was originally based on probably the FEMA schedule, is my guess.
Yeah, which, I get it, because it's simpler than the payroll, but what I would do to the truer accounting is I would actually charge the payroll for that time to PW and go with an internal rate closer to the $25 an hour. It's simpler from your perspective, especially if they're, for budgeting purposes, not able to get it because you don't have the staff to be able to do it. The first thing that goes is the basin cleaning to begin with.
So what you do is move some of that money up to your overtime line. Because you're paying them overtime, right?
More often than not, yes.
Okay.
We've had some circumstances
This
where,
overtime wouldn't be able to absorb it.
I
because
would
they-
buy that.
Yeah.
What I would say in that regard is, okay, the 20, I would cut it in half. I would take 10 out of the rental of equipment to leave it at 30 and move cut it to 20 and then move 10 up to the overtime line to be able to accommodate that, so you've made a net $10,000 cut.
I mean, alternatively, if you're saying that the storm drains aren't getting cleaned on the schedule they should be, would it make more sense to go back to an outside contractor if it's actually gonna get done that way, if we're overloading our people we have now?
I don't know.
And we should look into that, I just think, as, if we're, the storm drains are gonna get worse and worse every year if we're not cleaning them out and keeping on schedule. That was the whole point of, buying this truck. But if there's not enough people to run it and we're paying overtime, it would make more sense to find another.
Primary function of the
contractor
truck is still,
For the sewer lines
is
itself,
being
right.
done on an annual basis,
Right.
yes.
Repeat that? I didn't catch
The
it.
primary function of that truck purchase is still being accomplished every year, where all the storm, our
It is not basin
obligation is to clean the sewer system, sanitary sewer system on an annual basis.
But I'm just saying, if the storm drains, you said, are not
Right.
really being cleaned on the schedule we should be on, would it make more sense to, keep the money budgeted here, but spend it on a contractor rather than, trying to hire our own guys from the sewer department to work Fridays at overtime rates, maybe more expensive than just paying a private contractor?
Can we employ seasonal staff, or would that not be beneficial?
Provide that
What's the
truck
experience?
that-
I'm just asking that question, 'cause I'm sure you guys are probably.
Not for that.
Not on that piece of equipment.
Not for that piece of
No,
equipment.
hear me out.
Yeah.
Not necessarily on that piece of equipment. I'm talking about seasonal staff to fill in other roles and functions so that the trained professionals can go ahead.
That
and run
was
truck.
the whole point of the 50/50 position,
Mhm.
where that employee would be providing, that way we could send the two guys out on the truck.
Right.
And we've still got,
Swing man.
right,
Yep.
the guy that's mowing cemeteries, mowing the pump stations and keeping up with the groundwork and
Right.
all that kind of stuff. And then fulfill the obligation we had in the wintertime to have enough people to plow the streets.
Right.
We did, because the 50/50 position is currently vacant again, we did broach the subject of, well, I asked, can I go to a full-time public works guy and a seasonal
Yeah.
sewer department guy, or gal, but the Affordable Care Act restrictions kind of made it difficult to conceive of hiring someone that wants to work at the treatment plant for less than 30 hours a week. And so, and the cost increase to the public works budget was significant enough that it was not something with everything else.
It wasn't a quick fix. Gotcha. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yep, no problem.
So,
Majority of that rental, honestly, over the last 2 years, has gone to excavator rental.
yeah,
For us.
the
and-
grader.
Yeah, not as much as we should, but,
Right.
right. Doing the road work, because that's where last year, I want to say we rented the excavator for 2 months. We right around $6,000 just for the excavator, and then rented the roller when we did any hot top work, and we had to rent the compactor,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And I was originally gung-ho about buying our own excavator, but I've reversed course. Renting is a lot nicer, they come to fix it when something goes wrong. And then we get another one next year, so I think that if we can maintain a healthy rental budget, then that's better than
Okay.
than alternatives.
Everyone, you need it rather than pay to have it sit in the garage, you know. people
Well, and
drive
get what
it.
we, I mean, and there's another item later on down the road where I'm looking at us getting to the point of buying our own trailer, so that way we can move it once it's here, because right now we have to have someone come, we have to hire someone to
Move
move
around
it
from
for
site
us.
to site, yeah.
Right, but we have the equipment on site with a truck, we just don't have a trailer, because we can use the red tractor that's up at the solid waste department, that's the backup up there, and that could be set up to haul a trailer.
So, all the dialogue I'm hearing, I'm still thinking that we're pushing too much money to,
We can, and I'll bring, it sounds like we're gonna have a laundry list to come back with anyway, I can drill that down to more detail and look at funding that function a different way.
okay? I'd entertain that thought. I still think that we can cut 10 grand off the equipment line, push 10 grand up to the, 20 grand off the equipment line, push 10 grand up to the overtime, and at least be closer to what the sewer should be paying versus what general fund is actually paying now. Everybody in agreement on that?
Looks good to me.
Trees. We budget 5 and replace none. Is that done in the spring, or is that something that gets,
We are still waiting for a tree to be removed on Clark's Court. It's one that we'd asked or authorized Pat Malloy to cut down, and he's had his own staffing issues with, because it's a tree that needs to be climbed. So that tree is still slated to come down, and that's
gonna eat up the budget, I guess? Okay.
So
That's
that
what I was,
big tree
I just-
that's kind of
it's
like
a gigantic tree.
right there and
Yeah.
in the way.
okay.
Should have been taken down a long time ago, but
Mhm.
everybody looked at it and went, nah.
I can't.
The nature's gonna get it eventually.
No, and quite honestly, no one else wants to even touch it.
I don't
So
blame
we've
'em.
been- And Pat, we actually had the chat, a month or so ago, but it's just a matter
Okay.
of getting it done. And then that is just there for, I mean, like I said, that one tree. We've had other ones where it's, one tree's $2,500, so I mean,
Right,
it all
you
depends
put
on.
one in the ground, it costs, yeah.
Well, we don't put them in the ground, we just take them down. That's the tree cutting line.
Yeah.
Cutting, not a
It's just
replacement.
cutting only.
Just cutting, no
Tree
replacement.
removal, yeah.
There's a tree removal down, there's a trees lumen seed. We only spend $1,500 to
And that only
put
says
stuff
lumen
back.
seed.
That's mostly lumen
No
seed.
incentive there, I like that. We don't have a real good history of putting stuff in the street to actually maintain, so I get that.
Trees lumen seed should really be lumen seed.
Take that right out of the name.
Right out of it.
See, yeah, replacement and trees need to come out of those, 53, 35, and 36.
I saw this now line 32 or 53, 55 repair and maintenance signs. I see that somebody's telling us you gotta put up 85 stop signs.
Yep.
That's gonna leave you another $37.50 in that line. You're gonna put up another $3,700 and $50 worth of signs.
What did I have? I had 18,000. No, I'm looking at the
You had $7,000.
53, 55.
7,000. All right.
Yeah, line 34.
4250 for stop signs,
Yeah.
and the rest is based on the average of 2,600. So maybe a little high, but we don't really have other than the average what we're replacing for signs. I mean, it's not.
How much of the sign budget do we use this year?
All of it.
Yeah, there's only $300 left
Okay.
out of 2,500.
Why
You could do that
exactly are we
Oh,
replacing?
yeah.
I have it here somewhere. I brought it.
Well, I know it says
What was that line number again?
I printed it off.
55.
reflectivity guidelines.
So they're not reflective enough, probably old ones.
That's what it is. I mean, there's, you go around and we could stamp the date on them, or we could test their reflectivity. But what most people do is they buy the new ones, they're dated.
Yep.
Every 10 years, I believe it is.
pull
we
them
go
down.
back and replace them.
So you just have a list that you guys go to and pull for the entire.
This is this was the list that we created this past year where there's 85 stop signs that we need to,
That needs to come, they need to get,
we
yeah.
upgrade them all. I mean, no one's been pounding on our door, but we needed to start this well, we needed to have a plan in place last June.
Right.
What are you gonna do with them 85 full stop signs?
Sell off for kids' bedrooms.
So you see no-
Hey, put a roof on my shed?
No fun if you get them in your bedroom and you pay for
Like
them.
Kyle, that
$5 for stop
Oh,
sign,
yeah.
there you go.
get the overlap even.
We'll talk about that later, I'm sure.
Oh, the campground.
Getting rid of them?
Yeah, yeah.
I'll have to yeah. That's why I got a pile of phones in my office. It's done.
Figured out what you're gonna do with them?
You have got a lot of new coffee tables in the town buildings that have red stop signs.
Find something to do
Hey,
with
we
them.
could make birdhouses.
Be the roof on the salt shed if we don't do anything
That's
about
it,
that.
Yeah, there you go.
Repurposing.
Correct, 85 of them, lay 'em out.
Right there.
What can you get?
There should be savings.
Somebody's gonna write an article about how we're green over here.
Paint, paint.
What are you
We
talking-
don't do a real good job here in the last couple of years of actually expending paint. 2016 was a 0, 2017 to date, 0.
I
We're
don't
asking
know
for a grand
what's
again this year?
happening.
What happened there?
I don't know. I know that we bought paint last year because we bought it and put it out, so I don't know if it got billed to a different line or not. I'll have to look at that.
Can we,
The average is $468 over for
Okay.
the 8-year average is 468, so, we can look at that.
cool, I'll give you $500. It's 468, I'll give you the 500, just tell me where the
To be
other
honest
five
with you,
went.
the way we've changed our approach with doing lines as well.
Right.
I mean, we're not painting, we're not using as much paint because we're doing just the minimum as required by the MUTCD.
yeah.
Right.
If people want us to do it differently, then, I mean, that's a different discussion, but we've been
Right.
doing the bare minimum, basically, and that's
Keeping
minimizes
compliance.
how much how much paint we use.
Yeah, we're not using tape.
And when we find out where the $500 has gone in the past 2 years, I'd like to cut that line item by $500 too.
It went to one of these lines, it's over.
I'm sure of it.
Good, that's my recommendation, is if we've, typically I'm coming out of this line, it tells me that there's $1,000 that can come out of this budget somewhere, so
Mhm.
wherever you find the other 500, I'd make that recommendation too.
Okay.
Equipment, I think, is the next one, guys. Anything else before that you guys are seeing?
What's this, last one, the page you just on, 40, line 5380, or number 5380, supplies operating at $6 grand. What does that entail, Ryan? Could you toss that out for the
Yeah,
for the world to see?
that's basically, when we go to Obashan, all the paint and the miscellaneous items, what am I trying to say, like
What do you use
grinding stuff.
Yeah, what'd you use
I believe
last
that's
year?
what we charged, last year,
for that line item? For
the actual for,
178.
in this 8-year average is 53, so.
We found your $500 right there.
Yeah.
There you go, there's your $500.
Split the difference, right?
55.
55.
Buy parts, supplies, we love supplies. Next one, 41, 5390.
Right.
You still have 30,000.
Not, when was that report printed, because that's, I know we spent quite a bit recently. But I think it's,
That was in March.
Yeah, it's a March 30 cutoff date.
This is the 11th.
Well, the report said March 30. What's your amount?
I have it printed on. What's the date on that?
321.
Okay, 321 is, as of 321.
I have a unexpended balance right now of 22,579. I printed this
Okay.
today.
Today.
what is it what's it pay for again? It's in the verbiage.
That's the part, are you asking what
Yep.
it is?
Yeah, yeah.
All
The parts line is basically where anything that we have to buy, radiator, wheel bearing, spring, you know, that kind of stuff for any of the vehicles. And again, I'll go back to the 8-year average I have is 48,000.
Okay.
And over the last few years, I think that number would have been higher, but the last few years, the parts purchases have been quite a bit more conservative, and there's quite a bit more price shopping being done than had been done in years past. 2012, we were at almost 53,000, 55,000 in 2013, and 51 in 2014. And then we dropped down to 42 for the last 2 years. And quite honestly, if we're moving to the equipment line next, my recommendation would be to reduce this line pending discussions surrounding the equipment purchases.
I love your style.
So take the $5,000 we're gonna take off from that and put it somewhere else, is that what you're
I'd
talking?
be willing to reduce it by 10, or suggest reducing it by 10.
As long as we put the 10 somewhere else?
No, as long as we give him on the equipment
Other
side.
stuff.
On the equipment
New
side.
stuff, so
Yeah.
you won't have to.
If I can get 2 new trucks this year, then pretty much everything that we have down there of significance will be under warranty
Okay.
for the next, when was the Peterbilt, 2000, next 3 to 5 years. The last remaining equipment would be the pickup trucks, the one international bigger truck, and then the other little international
Now,
backhoe.
when you say if we give you 2 more trucks, what type of trucks are we?
I'm asking to replace the 2 Sterlings that we have left that are garbage.
Not
I'll
desirable.
be frank.
Oh,
They are,
You could be right.
2 of them are parked out, 2 of them are parked out in the corner that everything goes to die, and then one of them we were just keeping together through the winter. But, I mean, we'll do what we have to do, but the best thing that we could do would be to buy the 2 new trucks, order them immediately so that they will be here and ready to go by November.
You're saying you wanna get these trucks in the budget?
Well, if we talk about it in the fund balance, but
The fund
we need
balance
to,
right
we need to
here.
hear about this. Let's,
But don't we only have one of them listed?
But I think he wants to do.
I want to get rid of the backhoe. Well, I don't want to get rid of the backhoe.
I mean,
I'd-
doesn't wanna fund that.
I think that after going through this winter, being trucked
Right.
down, being loaded
There was only
down,
one damn truck put in.
You
we could
willing to
rent we could rent a backhoe
And be
pretty much
okay,
any day of the week.
right?
Finding a truck that's set up to plow snow.
Yeah.
So you
We didn't
prioritize-
try, I'll be honest, we didn't
'Cause it
try to
says
find
it
one to rent, but I don't even know where you would start.
I see what you're saying, so you're just changing priority, shifting and
Correct.
saying that the availability of a backhoe as a rental, while not desirable, it'd be better to have us, well, in most cases, it'd be better for us to be able to own. That's not the case, we could still be able to function and manage and not be beaten up from
Well, and if we continue with what we started last year with trying to do a majority of this road work that we've been doing with a rented excavator, which is faster, number one, and then it's not beating up our equipment, I think that in the long run,
Basically, you wanna take the backhoe out and white
Do another truck.
right over that and write another body, another heavy-duty plow truck.
Yep.
With stainless steel body,
correct.
bucked, ready to go.
Yep.
And that's the same price.
I have
Correct.
less heartburn than I did with the original backhoe, because the backhoe was something we didn't physically own, and it didn't make it to last year's capital improvement plan at all for this year. You know, so having that come out of thin air for the tune of $150,000 didn't really set well with me. So, the 2 Sterlings, the numbers last year, I know are junk, because it was still the 3-sided transaction to get you a replacement value of a truck. Is the 150 that you've given Diane what you think that's gonna have to be?
That's what it was based on what we just did this
The
year.
current cost, right, that's what I need to hear.
It's less than 90, I mean, especially if we're gonna buy 2, I don't know if there's any, if you get any bang for the buck by doing that or not,
Well, if they don't, we'll go somewhere else.
but the,
We're hoping for 2.
Ooh,
right.
When you say that, and the effect is, Lewiston had the same scenario we did this year. The fact is, everything was back ordered associated with that. It's sketchy as heck. There's very little pull there.
You say it's April, November's fast.
Yeah.
I thought we were doing real well last year when we essentially ordered our plow equipment in September, and we didn't get the truck until the end of January.
We need to start sooner.
And
So-
And that's not just, that was, just like you said, was primarily a vendor issue,
right. And
And-
the volume of everybody that's going through the exact scenario we're doing.
which has got to me means that the other vendor in the state,
Should be picking up some business? Sorry.
to the point where we purchased our loader, the headaches that they went through, I believe they'll start outfitting their own equipment moving forward, because I don't know if they came, if we were their guinea pig or what, but they came up to see, because we went round and round with the loader, and the owners mentioned it to me that he was asking his crew why they're not doing that work themselves, because it's stuff that they can do. So there may be another, but I don't know if that's just gonna be for that kind of equipment or not, but in any
Right.
case.
It's the same thing for that environment
Yep.
in general, from Aaron. Used pickup? What the hell?
I couldn't ask for new.
Not if he wants 2 plow trucks.
I don't see, on
Which one is it? Which one's going?
one that won't take a sticker right now,
Is that one?
let me find it.
No, I'm sorry. I got 2004 GMC, 2007 Ford, 150,
It's a
250.
250. Actually,
But-
let me open up that other spreadsheet, just one moment, please. I believe it is the 2004 F-250, which is the one that we bought, yes, it's Unit 206. It's the, I lied, it's Unit 207.
Don't do that.
Irregardless, it's the 2003 or the 2004 F-250 that we bought at the state auction.
Oh,
How many years
great.
ago?
Was it used?
Why won't it pass
$5,000 to $7,000 though versus
Oh, I
40.
know,
just-
I know.
Hey,
And
you
you
know
got
right.
years out of it.
What did we get for, just to?
How many years did you have it?
Well, we've had both of them since, one of them we got in 11 and one of them we got in 13.
The one that we got in 13, the one we're talking about?
I really think it's 206.
What's a
which
new?
is-
40 grand?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't it pass?
Maybe
Oh,
we'll go
more than
More
that.
than that, it's gonna be
Oh, no,
250.
we just bought
Maybe
a, we
bought
just
it out.
bought a,
If you buy a Ford, again, Ford's the Cork Auto is,
right,
Ford's more reasonable.
because, that's 250, you're right.
250, so I think it fit more closer to 50 than it is to 40.
The
Yeah.
50, the F550 that we bought, I believe, was 53.
Okay, so
That's-
maybe it is 40 then.
Maybe even a little less.
40 is at least the starting point. Then you gotta figure plow and, because
The
you're gonna,
plow is new that we have, so we will, that plow is
Fit it
gonna,
out,
Come
fit it
right
in.
off from that one body onto
Yep.
another one.
that's the plan. It's based,
One
and
frame to another.
15, like I said, I struggle with it because the cheapskate in me says just go to the auction, buy another $5,000 throwaway.
They're gonna give us like $500 for this truck, right?
I may leave it just at the transfer station in the wintertime, because we have another old plow that we can leave on it.
farm trucks
Yard
kind of
truck?
status?
Yard truck?
Sorry.
Guys throw it in the yard truck? That's fine, I mean, hey, if we can use it, and
It's just beneficial, because during it just gives those guys an extra
yeah.
unit to have, to keep the yard clean in the winter.
Mechanics hanging around doing stuff.
I got no issue
Get
with
in,
that,
move
I
it
mean,
around.
it's- we can't get any
It's not
bang for
something
it.
that's gonna,
As he said, it's not
You
gonna
won't
take
put
a
a sticker
sticker.
on it.
We're not taking it out on the
Road.
road. It's,
Not
Yard
road.
truck, right
Yard
there,
truck.
yeah, yard truck, and yeah, if we can use it, beats
The
getting
trailer
$2.
could be in the park, there we go,
there you go.
give it to Mark.
We can always put the plow on
Like
it.
a
if we
fire
can.
truck? Come on, you're killing me, man.
Next. Well, you're still right on line 46, number 5410 equipment. Is that where you're at right now? Have you left the parts
Yeah,
supply?
I'm,
Slid down the line.
I'm receptive to your item on the two Sterlings. The heavy-duty trailer, paint sprayer, and pump.
Excuse me.
You got anything to be able to pay for that this year?
Potentially.
I'd buy all those this year and say no to next year, in my opinion.
My
What I-
concern, my concern that I had just coming into this was winter is over.
Yeah, that was my next question. I was going
Winter's
from one budget back to the
You
other.
can hope. Over a lot.
Yeah.
And this one is a little, this budget is, how do I say this? It's hard to guess where we're gonna be, and I hate to say guess, but the diesel line, the gas line, those ones are always, I mean, those ones always throw me off of where we're gonna be at the end. And then we've got, it's also inflated with MDOT match money in there that won't be expended, but it needs to not be touched either, so I always get a little leery about where I'm actually gonna land with that budget, which we can look at that and do the analysis, we just haven't done it yet.
Okay.
We still have, a portion of that, main PERS credit that we haven't spent either. That's still in the general ledger.
Right, it's gonna
We've got
close the
about
fund
10,
balance, but
yeah.
it's not typical. What I'm trying to actually do is make him live within his budget, and that's what I'm liking, what I'm hearing, what he's saying. He knows that he obviously
Right.
has to look
Yeah.
from between winter and balance this budget to come out in the positive for what he submitted.
Mhm.
Speculation.
Right. Those last three items, I don't support them actually going into the fund balance model because they're so small amount. I would like
I understand.
to push you in that direction to pay
Okay.
for them this year, so they don't have to be part of the
Well,
budget discussion.
Quite honestly, the paint sprayer would be a benefit if I could do that right away anyway, because that's,
You need it. You can't have one
that's the
without the other.
season, well, that's the season we're going into, so.
Right.
That same heavy-duty trailer, the one that we were talking about, we can drag things around. Good, we get it done then.
What's the pump?
Believe it or not, we have a public works department that doesn't own a mud sucker, so we can,
Not for much longer.
So you rely on the fire department,
sewer department, water department,
somebody.
somebody, we don't own one.
Speaking of that, do you have an inventory of all the equipment you have and, any areas where you're deficient that we could, have a more long-term plan of, where?
I think the capital improvement plan presentation is it the 25th?
Yeah.
That's pretty well, it hits it. I think our biggest issue at this point is not necessarily equipment. It's space, storage, building, land even, for that matter. I
Right,
mean,
yeah,
So are you still leaning towards a used?
Pick up?
Yeah. Did you hear his voice crack? I love it. God, puberty came late, man.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I couldn't justify, I think, spending $40,000 on and that's just the number we're talking about. I just, knowing what we've gotten and the way the trucks are
Right.
pounded, I just,
Okay.
I have a hard-
Justify
I
the
have a hard
additional
time.
expense, something new.
I'd rather spend our money on bigger items, because those ones are, the pickups, I mean, they have their, we gotta have the trucks, let's be honest, but in the same respect, that big equipment is what we need to do our job, so.
So, the original dialogue that started this, guys, the fact that, addressing the list of equipment that Ryan's asking for a $10,000 cut on the maintenance side, because you're addressing the two big items with the two Sterlings, are you guys receptive to that idea? And are you secondly receptive to Diane's idea associated with using the fund balance, which would be the largest share of that, to address it?
Well, let me take a step back, and I just wanna make sure I understand this to kind of follow the bouncing ball there. The backhoe would come out,
Yes,
10K would come out of the supplies and parts, 5390.
yep,
Purchasing the two Sterling trucks is the ask that we're looking for.
yep,
And then the idea was, since it's a one-time, one-off, would we use that, purchase those two Sterlings out of the
Yes.
general?
Right.
out of the unassigned.
Unassigned, excuse me.
Yes.
That was a lot of.
Okay.
And
That's
we're
a
leaving,
lot.
and we're leaving $15,000 to buy your used
So you're
truck. out of it.
decreasing the equipment line to 15,000.
Correct.
You're cutting
Oh.
300 and
Say that again, Ryan, which one are you decreasing by 15,000?
10,000.
the
And the-
Supply parts is going to
5390
40.
would go to 40, and
Yep.
5410 would go to 15,000.
5410 would go to 15,000?
Because the 300 grand is,
Pulled out for the,
Well, the 150 of it's for the backhoe goes away.
Right, and the others are gonna be purchased this year. And you'll
But
talk,
you
so there's
wouldn't-
really gonna be a reduction of,
Take that. You
300,000.
want to fund 15
Right.
yeah,
a year?
change.
Well, yeah,
What's the total that would come out of the
There were something.
out of the budget, the bottom line of the budget,
fund balance?
Okay, so this will come off this list.
Yes.
she's talking about taking the
What's the-
300 grand.
So what would,
All of that's
what's the,
maybe about
Amount in the
300,
fund
it's the two
balance that we
trucks, the
have
150.
is it the four
Yeah,
thousand,
Each of the
this
trucks.
isn't updated, so I'm.
200 and,
Yeah,
or
it's just
four,
150 for two trucks.
four
out
hundred and
of
twenty-four thousand, six
the,
hundred and
general,
twenty-six?
the
I've
fund balance.
I've put an updated.
Yeah,
one.
it's a moving target to your
It's a
point.
moving target right
The,
now.
right now, the 300,000 is in that list of stuff to be able to.
Right, but I'm asking, what is the,
With
right
the
at this point, what is safe to use?
available to use.
Yeah.
Yes, Nancy, let you answer
Yep,
that.
right now. This updated list I had, if you're
No,
counting
just-
over,
She needs that number.
oh, okay, 424, 626, yeah.
So that is
Plus-
the amount,
Plus the overlay.
okay.
Yeah,
The overlay
plus
was
the
a buck 10,
overlay.
wasn't it?
Overlays on the second page. What did you have for a number? 200,000?
Yeah, approximately
I
200.
think it was buck 10.
That answer your question, Cassie?
Yeah,
Oh, it's right
I
there.
think so.
How
I
about,
mean, you
Hold on,
can
I'm
go
trying to find it.
higher than that 424, but that's, we
Right.
just put that on there.
See, cause I have an, it says
Right
less
there.
overlay to be lapsed, 200,000.
That's the one she just said.
Yeah.
right.
So,
What we're now is we're coming up with a shopping list to be able to
I know what we're
potentially
doing, I'm just wondering
Yeah.
what is the dollar limit?
624 is
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
the budget.
Eventually, we're gonna have to get there in that.
Mr. Crawford, you good?
No.
I see you looking too, so I just want to make sure. What can we do?
Taking the backhoe out, right?
Correct.
Out of everything.
just relabeling
Yes.
it.
We're just,
Relabeling
You'll
it,
just
you're
look
whiting
at
it
that.
out and writing a second
So
truck.
it's not,
Truck two,
Correct.
we can just call that truck two
So,
now.
They're the same price.
that's
call
the
it truck
second
two.
truck.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that second truck and that first truck are coming, it's not gonna be, it's gonna be out of the,
Undesignated, unassigned fund balance.
there you go. Okay. So the, as he said, line 41 or 5390 is gonna drop to 40, there's 10 grand.
Yep.
And then down here, this 300 grand is gonna be sucked out and put from there, so this 332 is really only gonna be 32, and then
So that's gonna be reduced down to just 15.
15. So,
And the other oddball stuff that was on your list that you'll also see on the fund balance discussion.
Right.
The heavy-duty trailer for 7,500, the paint sprayer for 7,500, and the pump. Ryan's gonna pay for those out of this
Yeah,
year's
so we
budget.
Alright,
take,
so
so I'll
that's staying-
update this sheet.
That's staying in the budget.
No,
That's
he's gonna buy them
Those
this year.
bottom three are gonna come out of this year's budget instead of this.
Oh, okay.
We-
So
We're
that
we're not, we're not putting it in next year
for
because
the
he's gonna
truck,
buy
for the
them this
pickup
year.
truck.
And now we're talking the truck's the only thing in the budget.
Correct.
You got
The
it.
used,
No.
The pickup truck, yes.
the
Yes.
pickup truck,
Used pickup.
all right.
correct,
Thank you.
No, good. I knew there was a lot of moving parts there,
there
so.
was.
And I'll,
Basically, he's gonna cut the budget by a big chunk right there by us doing it
Yeah.
this way.
Yeah.
jump forward one budget. There's also $6,000 that I budgeted in the winter budget to buy a hopper sander if we were gonna be left with one of the trucks, cause I was gonna,
You're not gonna
Make a
need that, you're
spare.
not gonna need that
I'm
now.
not gonna need that.
So
Oh,
that
right on.
6,000 will come out of 5410?
No, that
No,
one's
no,
not-
no.
That's the
Oh,
winter
next
one.
year.
Winter,
Next
next
year.
winter
next
budget.
budget.
Yeah.
Winter,
The winter
next budget. It's not this
I
tab,
jumped
it's
ahead, but
winter.
it's all part of the same discussion.
Be able to- So we will be able to put out this one, but it's not
Yeah,
this tab.
that's right here.
Yeah, you're wrong, I was right.
Yes.
I mean, I was wrong.
Yes, you're right.
Okay.
Different,
Well, it's on
different
there.
division, same account.
Said jump ahead
Different-
budget. I thought it
different-
was like,
different
"Oh,
division,
that's
same
pretty,
account."
well,
Yes.
Foresight too.
Okay, no, we're with you
Okay.
now.
It's all good.
Okay.
I didn't do that left turn this
There's
guy.
a lot of
guys.
shuffling right there.
I was not that left turn.
Moving right along?
Heavy
Heavy
machinery.
machinery hot box?
Casino hot box.
That's in the description on the report I'm looking at. So heavy machinery.
Number 47.
5420?
Yeah.
Yep.
5420 may have been where we purchased the hot box at one point, but that
Okay.
was
so
being set up
it's
as
straight-
a
Basically trying to establish some sort of reserve.
reserve account.
Has anybody thought about taking that 4-ton hot box and turning it into like a 2-ton hot box?
It's a 3-ton.
It's a 3-ton? I thought it was a 4-ton, but
Pretty sure it's 3.
I thought it was a 4. Because we've had some concerns about people with, when it loaded up on the back of that 550, you need a Class A driver or a number 1, and we don't have a lot of them in our house, right?
No, we don't, which is, I don't know why.
Well, I was told that it was spec'd out because we had 2 other guys that had, which were mechanics that are no longer even with us, that each had a 1 license. And one of them 2 guys really spec'd out that hot box, and that's how it ended up that way.
That was not why it was spec'd out that way. It was spec'd out because
Speculation.
bigger, in some of our books, bigger was better, and having additional capacity and not spending a whole lot more to do it was the big thing. And quite honestly, the Class A issue didn't come up until after we had already bought that item. And it was, the question was raised, is by having the vehicle weight rating of that trailer put then
4 ton.
has to be a Class A operator that drives, because it's a combination vehicle.
So what would it take to get somebody else with additional Class A licenses?
Apparently volunteers, because
I mean, it's
the
good.
contract offers to pay them additional money, additional funds, if all they have to do is go get their Class A, but
I mean, could the town, help with their training, I
that's
mean,
what they've done with everyone that's gone to their Class A. It's just the
Nobody wants to do it?
Sort of to do it,
the
yeah.
initiative, incentive, I mean, the incentive's there, so I guess it's the initiative.
Yeah.
Back to the reserve account.
And you're talking about, you're still on 5420, heavy
Yep.
machinery?
Yep. What are you looking at? I'd like to reserve that discussion for after I hear the CIP to know what's coming down the pipe, to know if it's beneficial or not. I mean, because looking at information that I know that's now dated, we're looking at a sidewalk plow potentially next year that we may ultimately not deal with if we sub that out. And the other of your Ford 250s, if not the, and nothing else is actually even in next year's horizon with what I'm looking at from last year.
Oh, I've got that. The CIP, which we updated based on some of the changes,
Everybody know what the CIP is?
changing our useful lifespans. We basically, for next year, we identified, well, this year we had identified, and I was dreaming, but still, 2 trucks and a backhoe. So, 2 trucks is,
So a backhoe and potentially next year would remain?
and then another pickup truck. And then we're gonna look at if we're stick on, depending on what we go with the useful lifespan, if we stick with a 10-year useful lifespan, the 1999 International would go, well, should have gone a while ago, but that would go next year. I mean, excuse me, in 2020. And that,
When you say looking at, are you looking to expand or shorten, or what on the lives?
well, it's a 99, and we didn't stick to 10-year lifespan on that.
Right.
So, I mean, it's,
Way that we look at it in Lawson is we budget a 10, if you can get 14 out of it, you gain 4 years. I mean,
Right.
it's based on where you're at and on your maintenance record. Some vehicles, year 7, 8, and 9 are rough, so you may not even get the 10th, but then you have the exception that you may get 12 to 14, but
well, and it's like the 2008 International, which would be the only other remaining truck. That one's been a lemon since
day one.
day one.
I thought we had discussed about backhoes, it's just as easy just to rent them.
Well, I mean, that's.
They show up, here they are, I mean,
Yeah, that was,
That's-
you jumped into my question, so I hear what you're saying there, so ultimately, this capital, this $100,000, two things you identify is if we stick with the truck from 99, and then the backhoe are the only two pieces of equipment that right now that are immediate, needs.
Yep.
And then if we go back to our original discussion and say,
I'm sorry, it wasn't the backhoe, it was the trackless and the 2 trucks this year.
Yeah,
And then I put the backhoe for next
No.
year.
oh, the sidewalk
Sidewalk.
guy?
sidewalk.
And if we're gonna farm that out anyway, so realistically, if we
Right.
look at this as a one thing, which is replacing the 99, what's the replacement cost on the 99?
That goes into the discussion about, quite honestly, we've talked about the need to have a wheeler. We don't have a wheeler, we have everything we have is a single axle, truck. And that would bump the price up to probably over 200,000 instead of the 150 that we're at for just the single. But
So
let me
realistically.
back up a little bit too, because the 150 price point that we're at right now
Is
is
loaded up.
is utilizing our old body
Right,
and a smaller truck.
Right.
Right?
so if we go away from that and we buy,
It's been one of those things, I've heard it since I started here, you know, about we really need a wheeler, but we've never, and I guess they used to have one.
so wheeler's price
So we
tag.
need it, but we've never had it, so what do
He was
you
never
use?
given one.
No.
So the ask
No,
has
but
been
my
there,
question
the ask
is,
has been
what
there a
do you
few times before.
use
Yes.
Okay, that's,
Presently.
well, that's, I wanted to make sure I understood, the ask has been made before, but it's never been granted. All right, I understand.
Capital improvement is actually slated before our last follow-up discussion, correct? I-
Slated for the 25th.
Can we, I'd like to put that 100,000 discussion associated with this reserve account for that future meeting to be able to hear one from the
Yep.
other, just to know where we're at, because
Yep.
that'll give us, what's our horizon on the capital? Are we doing a 10-year like this, or what,
I believe what I submitted was through 2023.
okay. Five. Right? 18, 19?
7.
7. Can you give me 3 more?
Sure.
Just actually.
We only were asked for 5, that's why.
No, but what I'm,
But I haven't.
what I'm looking for associated with this is something that we potentially just purchased last year, if it was used. You may, by that 10th year, have to re-replace it, so you can see it coming back
I
on
see
the
what you're saying,
schedule. So you get a full picture of everything in the fleet and where you're at on that.
That's fine.
That's the only reason I was asking for it.
Yeah, no. And quite honestly, what the big question is gonna be is when we start replacing the trucks that we bought a cab and chassis, put our old body on it, are we gonna be, we don't know if we're gonna be, if that body's gonna go 3 cabs and chassis, or if that's gonna be a 2 cab and chassis, and the next time we have to go ask for the whole 9 yards or what. I don't know that answer at this point.
Yeah, that shell game with how you had to build trucks in the past was rough to absorb, and some of that was the $100,000 cap, and how much of it is the logistics of what makes sense for your operation. Now that if it's just strictly of what works for your operation, I'd be inclined to hear it out. If it's just to make the financing to get it underneath the $100,000 cap, the way I would rather approach it is, now that it's 250? 250. In that regard is, I'd like to see in any given year what you need for a replacement plan, so you're not having to finance it over the 10 years. Is a better cost to the community when we finally have it done.
Well, and
With
quite
what's
honestly,
in the debt service now. That's the trade-off, is that shit has to go away first.
quite honestly, the way the approach that we've taken, I mean, we looked at it last year. Last year, I was gonna push the issue about buying a cabin chassis with a new body and not run the risk, well, we still ended up behind the 8 ball when it came to this winter. But the cost to buy a new body versus reuse our old stainless dump body, it was another $20,000 or $30,000, and that was, when previous administration purchased the stainless steel bodies, that was the way it was sold, is those stainless steel bodies would then be able to be recycled
Right.
onto new cabs, later on down the
Okay.
road. And that has worked
That's sound.
Yeah, and it's been a more cost-effective approach.
Okay.
I don't know how many recycles
Right.
Get out of them.
Okay.
get out of them.
I'm inclined to hear that if it's coming from you operationally rather than just dictated because of making the budget work.
Right,
That-
I think
that's
that
why I was
before it
asking.
was, it wouldn't have mattered what it was, if we were buying brand new or reusing, it was still had to be, you bought the cab.
Because
and
you
you
need 3
outfitted it.
cycles to get it on the road. To get under $100,000.
You needed you needed two vendors.
Yeah.
I'll just make it, you needed the two vendors, two
Right.
separate invoices to get to the,
Okay.
below the cap.
That stainless, is there any sort of, I'm sure there is, but for the manufacturer, sort of an idea of how many times you can realistically kind of move it along with?
Life age on them.
Right, exactly. What are their realistic expectations? And then from there, I'm sure your practical application, how long have we had these? How many times have we, is this the first time we've transferred this over, or have we gone more than one? Yeah.
Well,
So-
the original trucks, all these Sterlings came with steel bodies.
Right.
So these Sterlings they've already rotted through one steel body, and now they've had a stainless body on them.
Right,
And now the body has outlasted the cab and chassis.
right.
And each time we swap it over, we've, rehabbed, and it's relatively inexpensive, sandblast, because it's still steel underneath. Underneath the structure is steel, and then the floor of it's DAR steel. So they still sandblast all the cross members in the frame, and then coat that with an industrial coating, and then that goes. So that way we're still trying to maintain that part, but I don't know how long the stainless.
Right.
I mean, it's gonna get some dings and dents in it, but it's still, you give it an
Hold
acid
up.
wash, it looks
What
like
I'm
brand
hearing
new
is
again.
it's cost effective and it makes sense rather than just the budget part of it making it
Correct.
work.
Sounds like so far.
I'm not saying that that's gonna continue
Always the case.
for
Well,
perpetually.
your mechanics or somebody will chime in.
But eventually
that's
they'll
no
say
longer
when it
sound.
can't, yeah.
Can we rewind back?
Yep.
My question didn't get answered.
I'm sorry.
The Wheeler, is it in the CIP plan?
I put it in as, I don't know if I labeled it as a wheeler. Hang on a second. I did.
Okay, so
Wheeler with new gear, and I probably have to update the price based on what I heard from Durham, so.
you guys have never had it, but you've always been,
There's always been
Hated
the
it.
conversation about, when it comes to 196 or out on the ferry road, when you're doing those kind of treatments to be able to, just to extend the amount of time that you can come out before you have to come back to the shop and fill up. And then when we're doing projects in the summer, snow removal in the wintertime, I mean, it's just all those added benefits of having extra capacity to haul, versus the little,
Instead of making
yards.
several trips, you just get to make one.
so, I mean, just introducing one of them to the fleet was, if it's at some point in the future could be afforded, that's the approach we'd like to take. And it makes sense when we're replacing the 1999 International, that one does not have a body that we can use on a new cab and chassis. You'd be looking at all new anyway.
now, next question, because you wouldn't be required to have a Class A for that, wouldn't you?
Class B.
No? It is a Class B? Okay,
Moving on.
sounds good.
So heavy machinery, future discussion for that 100K after the CIP. Paving, like last year, do you have a punch list of roads?
I have an initial best guess.
Homework assignment for June? I'm receptive to the idea
yeah.
because the one thing we hear about on a regular basis is our streets. I don't think that I won't make a recommendation to bring it down, I just want to know
I
what the
can
crop
rattle
is.
off the ones I've already.
Yeah, please.
Please.
I've got
Thank you.
Laura, Brook, Capitol Ave. Capitol Ave, I'm looking at doing, I'd like to do the whole circle, but I just don't see us fitting that into the budget. The whole circle is gonna cost, I've got these all broken down so far.
And
But
we-
the whole circle on Capitol Ave would be, come on. We eat up $100,000 easy, even if, based on, if we did a mill and fill or an overlay. We could do the drag shim with the surface that we did out here on Farwell Street.
That sucks.
Yeah,
I would never vote for that ever again,
I completely agree with you, Chris.
ever.
All right, so then,
I'm still taking it out of my garage, it's in every pair of boots I have, it's fucking everywhere. I can't stand it, I don't even wanna talk about it.
But the
So a
chip
mill
seal?
and fill,
Correct. I don't even wanna talk about it.
The mill and fill would be about 100,000 to do all of all of Capitol Avenue, basically. But if we do just down to where the circle starts, which is, I think, the worst section, that's right around 30,000, so we'd be looking at that. I mean, if you're only talking 400,000, Hewden Road, which is another one, that's a big ticket item, that's 160. But I can rattle off the list that we kicked around and sent,
Is Ferry Road or Nason on there?
There are a lot of complaints for Hewden, Ferry, River.
Ferry and where Ferry Road and Nason connect.
we've got, yeah, we've,
uh, People are starting to show up as tourists because it looks like the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
And that's not a knock on you. I get it. You're battling a.
well, that was, I mean, quite honestly, that was one of the ones that we were gonna try to do last year ourselves,
Yeah.
and that didn't happen. Because we do have hot top money in the budget in a separate line, the guys, we cut that out and make it better, but
We might be having to rent Cody Crane to take some cars out of there.
Cody Crater regular.
Aurora Brook, Capitol, Cross, Frederick, Frost Hill Ave, Hinckley, Hewden, Maple, Merrill. Park Street's coming off because that's a sewer street. Pike, Pine Woods, Spring Street, and Warren Circle. Pine Woods was one where we looked at the possibility, we talked before about keeping the good roads good, possibility of just doing a surface treatment on Pine Woods Road to try to keep that in shape because it's starting to lose its shape in areas. But I don't think I've got, if I added everything up, I think there's like $600,000, $700,000 worth of options. And I've got it,
Good.
break it down to whatever option we want to talk about at some point, but.
Lewiston just went out with pretty sizable paving contracts for bids, and the price of paving this year was cheaper than they got last year. So I'm not encouraging you to cut it, I'm encouraging you to pave it. In that
We need to,
regard.
and I'll be honest, gross development, we've had quite a few complaints recently. I've got to drive through there. I just haven't been through gross development to get a good feel.
Again, when you build a housing complex over a swamp.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Both sides of the town, though, we did that on both sides.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's the
Park,
flat
same
land
thing.
to fill in, with
Could've-
the wetland.
It took them 15 years to figure out.
That's
they
the only
gotta
thing that's
they
been
gotta-
equitable
They gotta
so
dig
far.
a
They did
ditch
it on
where
both
that
sides.
water is, otherwise that road's gonna wash out. Whitney's gonna wash out every spring. They did it for 10 years when I was a kid. I watched them do that, come out every year and put more fill in, repave that section of the road, and then I'd wash away in April every year.
Everybody comfortable with leaving that budget the way it is stands? I mean.
The 425 and 534, 5435, yeah.
Okay, MDOT matching, what are we matching? I thought we set that aside last year.
Let's get a
That
hold
was
of
for the
Karen.
design and right-of-way only portions of all those projects on Main Street. What we discussed was starting to put away for the remainder of the match, which will come when the
Doesn't hit as quick.
construction. Correct.
Okay.
And that's one, quite honestly, though, depending on, well, we'll know more after the 25th. Because we have a meeting with
That's when you might be
DOT.
able to knock down 50,000 because
Right.
everything's extended out.
If it's gonna get pushed out
We
till
think
19
the
or
worst
20,
case
then.
scenario for our share will be 400,000. So
Right.
we already have 217.
So this is
So
just
we
the
figured
whole.
if we did 100 this year and 100 next year, we'd
Right.
be all set. But because it's going out to 2019,
We got a little bit of breathing room.
We
yeah,
got two
you
budget cycles.
So realistically,
last
Before we even have to fund it.
we
The
could
roads
throw-
last that
Right,
long.
but by
Right.
the time they give
No,
us
no,
our
no.
final bill, it'll probably
Let's
be
live
in
here there for-
2020.
Yeah, let's live here for a minute. Yeah, I know where you're going.
To your point on that, Mark, the fact is, the meeting that they're going to on the 25th is, what is the state gonna do in the meantime to
Right.
get us through two more pothole seasons?
It's pretty bad as it is now.
Right.
So with that being said, if we're talking about that now, we got 2 full budget seasons after this one. This is just me floating this idea, rather than reduce to 50, why not just reduce the entire, if we know we have 2, or is that too risky? I'm looking at your face, Diane, you're saying, I don't like that idea.
We're
Is it
gonna
too
have
risky? other
other projects too that are, we haven't gotten the 3-party agreements yet, but I believe in the work plan, I think I don't even have it here, is on 196 from McDonald's to Main Street is another project,
That'll be
and that's,
Needs a resurface there.
where's that one?
That'll probably happen before.
Here, it is, 17, work plan,
It
year-
is
it's in the
before the
17-18.
First promise
That
on
may be
Main Street.
It's in 17, so
It's
it's
in
in
the
this next cycle.
17-18 work plan year,
Yeah,
and
that
the
road was
estimated
separate
funding
until you remember they
600,000.
did the work.
So that would be,
Did you get that?
sticks with the 10%, we'd be at 60,000
60K,
max.
so we could probably drop 40 then, is what you're saying.
Potentially, but again, we don't,
We don't wanna take any chances.
Because we're gonna have 200,000 to come up with in a couple of years.
I would rather just be safe than sorry.
I mean,
Be proactive,
Well,
not
that's-
reactive.
Leave as is?
Okay,
For now.
Was it the figure that intimidated you?
I just gave it back to her.
Okay.
I gave her the one that I don't normally give.
So we're leaving the 100K?
Sounds
Say
like a
for now.
consensus.
but tonight,
Do we want to have that for the future meeting discussion after
Yeah,
they know
let's
on the
do it.
25th?
I'd say come back and revisit it.
Good place to talk.
and just, in case we're not successful with DOT, I put together, estimated just to put an inch shim on the worst section of Main Street, would be like $50,000 to Band-Aid it for those years. And quite honestly, if DOT is not gonna do something, we need to do more than just fill the
Fill.
potholes. A couple of years ago, we went out and hired a local contractor to grind out the worst spots, and then we hand-placed pavement and did that, and those patches held up very well, and that may be what we end up having to do just out of the hot top budget, but.
So is it your opinion that Maine DOT, DOT is not gonna do it?
We don't know, we're gonna have a meeting on the 25th.
We just, and you've worked with DOT before, what's your instinct tell you? Our
I'm
town,
not
I know.
willing to
Okay.
say one way or the other at
That's
this
fine.
point, because I really have no idea.
So it's that much, and that's fine, that's what I wanna understand. I don't do this, you guys have, so it's a wild card thing with them. You won't know until you show up that day, and then if the mood's right and they feel like doing it, they'll do it.
Because
It's not,
it is, I mean, I hate to say it is what it is, but DOT, there's two different heads, well, at least two, that you've got your regional group that's responsible for maintenance and whatnot, and they have their own budget, and light capital paving comes out of that part of DOT's overall. And then this project comes from, I don't know, major projects, I don't know what the name of it is, but it's a separate funding source for what they're doing on Main Street for the reconstruction part of it. So that's the big question, is does Region One, Scarborough, which we're part of, have money that they can use to do light capital paving in Lisbon, number one, and then number two is there's always money floating around on the other end of things, and we've been recipients of money that they've been able to bump up a project here and there. Is there anything there that could be used to Band-Aid us?
Get
So
us through.
Fair enough.
that's why I really,
No, yeah, fair enough. I am not trying to put you over the barrel at all. I'm just trying to gauge, get a little bit better. Sounds like I'm not gonna get that, or none of us will get that answer until you guys come back from that meeting.
right.
That's fair enough.
Anything else on the PW budget, guys? Turn the page.
Winter,
Winter.
it's coming.
I don't believe in it.
I hate it.
Good to hear.
I've been the
I
wrong
still
damn
love winter,
state.
Where are you now?
50,
Winter.
yeah,
Flip,
03,
for me. Other way.
306.
Next page. One after that. Right here.
First one that stays off the page is a question for Diane. Retirement, seriously, it's been zero? That tells me that Ryan's paying 100% of it out of PW, and why is this necessary?
It says 0 on it?
Yeah, he's got, budget last year was 5814, we spent nothing.
Oh, it's because something's not coded right.
Can you look at
Yeah.
that? Because that tells me that Ryan's, it's in the PW budget somewhere.
Yeah.
The other tab. And if it continues to remain there, I'm okay with it. I'm just not funding it out of this one, so he can cut $6,000 out of the budget here. Unemployment, you're already over budget. We had $399 budgeted last year, and you spent $1,100. Is the $350 sound, or is there an anomaly in?
I'm going to have Jody check that.
Can you do that for me? I'm dancing around the contracted services discussion, guys, because that's.
Don't be scared, just dive right into it.
Don't be scared.
This year, heavy on salt? I know. the
We
answer-
were close to, I mean, we are, looking back to what we tell AvCog, I think we were closer to what we said we were gonna take than we have been
in years
historically.
past. Okay.
And quite honestly, the snowstorms this year, we had a bunch of those little dinky ones, but some of them lasted 24 hours, and those ones are the worst, because you're out there constantly
Right.
treating, versus the blizzard, you treat it once, maybe at the beginning, and then at the end, and then you're just plowing. So, I mean, all these little ones were horrible.
You,
And it is way over,
yeah.
way above our 8-year average, too.
That's where, well, we seem to have budgeted at least the last 3 years, $130,000, and,
Well, actually, we're not too bad, because in 14, we were 153, 15, we were 159,
right,
134 and 11.
You know how much we used to budget in this line, back when I started in 2009?
Half of what we were using.
60,000, and we would spend 120,000.
But you could find it in another line.
But you'd have to, no, you'd pull it out of the reserve, because it was you're legally allowed to go over in that line, and they were just under budgeting.
Everything just comes-
Basically, they were tricking the system.
Not really, but.
Right, I mean, it was.
No,
a
they
temp-
would never
It was
do
hiding
that.
it, right, it's just hiding the impact of it.
That's an ugly word.
Yes.
Reallocate it.
Oh, easy, doctor.
Glad to see we're at least budgeting somewhere in the ballpark of what we're spending.
yeah, but is 130 realistic? That's what, I'm cutting to the chase.
Yeah.
Last year.
We didn't have a winter last year, don't
What's
quote
the
me
We
year?
that
still
one.
spent 121 last
I
year.
know, and that's what bugs me.
10 of it was
We
sand.
had 2 falls.
10 of it was winter sand.
We had 2 falls.
What's our average? Do you have the
The
year?
8-year
It's above
average is
130.
The 8-year average is 126.
Is it,
Yeah.
oh, okay, so it's right on the money
Yep.
then.
Start talking about it next.
Yep.
Thank you, that's what I need to hear.
I'm here to help.
Is that all you need to hear?
He's much better.
Hey, we passed the 9 o'clock hour, the punchiness is up.
I haven't slept in
Alright.
a couple of days. I got one kid getting teeth and one kid sick.
Do we want to dip our toe into the contracted services,
Do
or
it.
is salt shed yet? Which one?
Either one, doesn't matter to me.
Next.
Sidewalks. Why? Which labor item, how much do we pay the operator in this? This is basically, the only true savings to us is we don't have to pay for a $190,000 piece of sidewalk apparatus, correct?
And your level of service you provide the community would be greatly improved.
It would increase, yeah.
Didn't we just, how long ago did we buy it?
Well, it was used when we bought it, it's a 99.
It was a paint job that was purchased, and it is,
Okay,
It was-
enough said.
It was bad, it was too
The other
small,
thing
we
is
bought it
getting
already.
somebody to run it.
We
We've
have
had
been
a
unable to-
problem
I
this
think,
year.
I think
I
that.
think
I don't
we ought
wanna
to
talk,
look
I don't wanna
back
talk
on
about
it.
the last guy. He took out more, he's created more work in the neighborhood.
I think we all realize.
I mean,
you
I think
you
a
have
lot
no
of-
idea how many signs he's really taken down, a fire hydrant and a handful of other things.
How do you take
that-
down a fire hydrant?
How do you take down a fire hydrant? You hit it full blast with a sidewalk cleaner, it'll break it right off. Fortunately, it was a breakaway and it wasn't an old RD wood, because an old RD wood will not move. You will really do a lot of damage to that piece of equipment.
You hit
anything.
yourself based on that.
Basically, you'll throw yourself right through the windshield,
So-
because they won't move.
Big scheme of things, and I think we're all talking about making sure that the upside to us is that we get somebody who's qualified and is gonna do a good job.
Yes.
I think they need to prove
That's
their
contracted, yeah.
qualifications.
Can we get rid of the machine that's got the crap pounded out of it and get anything for that?
Probably not.
Crap, okay,
I don't
Or
care
have we
if it goes.
burned that bridge?
that's fine, hey, it is what it
I'm
is.
not sure which question to answer first.
It would only be good to somebody that has a similar one. and
Our
part
machine,
it
we would
out.
not want to get rid of.
Okay,
Benefits
thank you.
for us in the summertime with the sweeping for sidewalks
Correct.
is, the thing certainly doesn't owe us a thing at this point, other than a bunch of headaches. But from a sweeping, I mean, that's gonna be going out right away, starting on the sidewalks, for sweeping, that sort of stuff. And honestly, based on what direction the council wants to go, having that as an alternative, even if we do contract the service, to have the equipment if we had to go out there in an emergency, or if we had to go out and sand, because the previous contract was based on a snow blowing portion and then a sanding portion, and it was actually based on the foot, which I've got the old contract here. The last contract was $27,773 for the snow blowing and $13,859 for the sanding part. I would prefer to put the whole 9 yards out to bid, but I don't know I have no idea what we'd get for bids, quite honestly. I've heard that I've talked to the previous person, and he asked what the bid would look like. If it was gonna look like the sidewalks when he did it, or like the sidewalks the way the town's done it. And I indicated to him that my assumption is we would be putting out an RFP that closely resembled the original contract that had been in place for years. If we got bids that were too high for the snow blowing, or that all we could afford was the snow blowing portion of it, then, at least for the first year, we could follow up and do the sanding aspect of it. Because the way it works with the contract is he would go and snow blow everything, and then he'd come back and sand everything. And if we can just get the snow blowing part of it out of our responsibility, then give the guys a chance after a storm, they can come back after getting some sleep, and then we could send a crew out to do that part of it. Again, I'm back to, hopefully, and it is just, speculation at this point, that we can get a contract that's within something we can afford. But,
So
and
let's
I don't know,
just-
and I did reach out and I haven't heard back yet, but, and I'm not sure how this plays into the school discussion, but there was a discussion about plowing, and I don't know if the school's contract is up.
Alan has the same need, and his is basically plowing as well too. He spends in the neighborhood of 24 grand, I believe it is, for the high school complex, and
Because I had reached out to him to find out if it was, and I wasn't 100% positive, but to see if it was, do we put the sidewalks and the school out as a package? I mean, is that the discussion, or is?
it'd be economies of scale. I didn't know if the fact is we put a larger contract out there, we
Right.
could get a better price for the entire thing, and it would be something that Alan would be receptive to, was my dialogue.
Okay.
And that's basically because he approached me at one of their meetings, sitting in the audience, is there anything that we could actually do jointly to be able to minimize the cost? Joint bid, I'd be all over it if there was something that actually would benefit both organizations.
I reached out to him about that and about paving, because I guess there was another discussion about them having some paving needs, and if I get an idea what that is, we can add the tonnage to our,
And I didn't know, and it's, in fact,
Yep.
in that regard, I've driven that circle, and there's a need, I don't know if there's funds, but in that regard, if part of our paving contract, we could actually get pricing that they might benefit from, it's a win-win all the way around. They would pay for it,
right.
but we've gotten better pricing versus them going out and going with a smaller company, because their project is much smaller.
Hey, there was one more thing too, and this is just an aside, it's not as large a price tag as the sidewalks for the whole town and for the school, but I remember, Mrs. Nato's budget as well, I think that's when, she had talked about some additional funds for, snow removal that
Yep.
weren't covered in that, so maybe we can get that kind of thrown in too when we're talking about that, 'cause she said the initial sidewalk plowing didn't cover
Right.
all of her needs, and that was just.
Here's the shoveling the back driveway and then
Yeah.
between the building, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly.
I don't think
Also
it was
during, I think it
down
was
Union,
when
I
they're
think it
open
was.
as well, because, I mean, and I'm speculating on that, but, because the way, in the past, the sidewalks, that doesn't happen until all the plowing was done.
Right.
Right.
I don't think that the library, staff was doing shoveling during the day. I thought that was when they were open, they had someone that was helping them with that.
Right.
I'm just thinking, if we're gonna contract these services out, let's make sure that we get the most bang for our buck and make sure that the folks that we're gonna go after, we include all of our needs.
I mean, I just think you gotta be careful, the library is a guy shoveling it out by hand, it's not something you could do with this equipment, to go in the, the back door entrance and stuff.
I don't, yeah, and all I can remember what she said was that it only covered the, only place that the current, snow plowing was happening was right down Main Street, right out in the front. There was nothing going down Union. So if nothing else,
It goes down Union, but it won't be till the end of the storm. I
Yeah.
think that's what they try to keep open during the day.
yeah. So maybe if we can just get that included in, and the contractor will understand in whatever timeline it is, but I understand why you guys weren't doing it till then. You had, you can only do so much with what you got. But if they still gotta shovel the back, that's on them. I'm
Right.
sure they can pick up a shovel, or if they wanna put that in their budget to pay somebody to do that, we can talk about that, I guess.
Can
Well,
you,
the big thing is that volunteers were paying for that out of the
Yeah, I
Friends
remember,
Library
yeah.
budget, which is not really fair to expect volunteers to maintain a town building. You wouldn't expect, people are gonna pay for the, sidewalk out here in front of this building, get volunteers to pay for that is not reasonable in my opinion.
Does the public works staff shovel the walkways here?
Yes.
Can I ask
And
you
I
a
think that
question?
we have to talk about
Right,
that.
if
If you did get that,
Exactly.
Good
that
point.
did end up getting, contracted out, what would that do to your, 5111 overtime budget?
It really wouldn't,
Cause you have.
You had one
part-time
position at least
employees.
there, yeah.
potentially reduced, but we've also talked about not reducing that based on snow removal requests for
For
downtown.
yeah, I was gonna, my next one was gonna come, and it's right in his neighborhood. I heard an oddball story associated with the way that Main Street is actually taken care of. Can you educate me with how that process works? There was a scenario that I had, is the fact is, we have sidewalk plow that blows it into the street, and the and the plow that pushes it up too, and the fact is, what they left with is no parking on either side of Main Street until the removal actually happens. Is that the case?
That is accurate.
Well spoken.
I
There's
experienced that this
There's a parking
winter.
ban there anyways.
Yeah, well,
Only when
no,
they're doing
well,
removals.
until you have some,
They're doing removals.
The
Or it
rest-
gets
the rest
too
of the
far out
story-
in the street.
the rest of her story that I heard on a Friday night was the fact is, some local took it upon himself to actually throw the car and park in the driving lane and block Main Street from anything, forget passing, because there were no parking, so he took it upon himself to do exactly that. Just leave it in gear and park in the middle of the lane. Are you kidding me?
Somebody need
And then somebody parks directly across the street in front of Dr. Mike's, and traffic starts backing. So, at the end of the storm, is that when the removal happens? How's that?
It all depends on
How much is there?
what's there, what's forecast in the future. I mean, how long the guys have been in, I mean, that's.
There
that's-
it
Go
is.
home and sleep and
Just
come
a bit, I
back.
mean,
So where'd they go?
What?
They park in the middle of the road and they just
You go around. Go around. They were in the road.
What do you mean the people, the person that parked?
Yeah.
They probably either went in more.
Went into Dr. Mike's.
Dr. Mike's.
Gonna have lunch.
I was just thinking to sit down and have dinner and just.
Dinner. Yes.
Where's the cops when you need them?
Well, no, I was gonna
Still
say,
have an
that's gonna be really
additional
cool. You're enjoying
part-time
your,
employee for that.
you're enjoying your
That
food while you watch
first
your
line.
dog,
No,
your dog get towed by camels.
So we know that
The
we have
overtime
to
would-
deal
it
with
would be the regular
snow
crew.
removal issue
Just be
downtown,
more
and
time,
even the
more
parking
likely more
lots.
overtime
We're gonna
job.
have to do it more
I
frequently
think
now
it's-
that everything
I think
is
it's hard,
filled
I think
up.
it's hard to not look at the overtime, in the wintertime and realize that you guys are completely overtaxed during this time. I mean, it's a crapshoot.
Well, I mean, just for instance, the end of this year, the surprise storm, the 22-inch storm, and then there was forecasts right afterwards for another storm, and then that never materialized. We didn't do snow removal right away, because, number one, the guys
I'm
needed
damned if I
time
do,
off.
damned if I don't.
Number two, we had another one coming right on the heels, and then it didn't come, and then it got warm, and it wasn't until I didn't realize how much shade Main Street really has down there. There's no sun. So we ended up doing a early morning snow removal, and quite honestly, I don't know when the right time is to do snow removal. We've done it at night, we've done it during the day, we've done it early in the morning. If we do it at night, businesses are happy, the folks that live on Main Street, not. The backup alarms on everything, just constantly all night. We've tried doing it where we not shut down, try to keep one lane, and just do one side at a time to try to keep some traffic and get through there, and that,
Never works.
nothing works. The only thing and that's just it, this seems to be the best for us from a financial standpoint is if we do it, we have one guy come in 4 o'clock in the morning, he starts making the piles, and then the rest of the crew shows up at their regular time, and they start hauling during the day, no overtime involved, other than the one, maybe 2 guys that came in early. But that's the most cost-effective, but I'm one of those ones that, the last thing I wanna see driving down Main Street first thing in the morning is that road closed for snow removal at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, and then taking
The
a.
businesses get
So
affected by
I-
that.
That's something that, Diane, we've gotta work on a plan, and that's something, my goal is to have something that we can agree is a reasonable approach that we can advertise for this coming winter.
Can you spec it for part of this bid?
The snow removal part? I don't know. I'm sure you could, and I'm sure it's done. I hadn't thought about it to be able to tell you.
I mean,
I don't even
who
know.
knows what the cost would even be? Because
And
our
it's
internal
all-
cost,
And it's all based on,
Volume.
we did snow removal 1 time last year. We did snow removal 2 or 3 times this year.
right. Yeah, we had 2 falls the previous year, remember?
The year
Okay,
before.
all right, it is what it is, but the bigger issue, obviously, the back parking lot, and that arrangement will have to be improved with now a full downtown.
Yep.
Okay. Salt shed?
I'd love to have one.
What's the benefit in the
Being
payback?
frank again.
The benefit in the payback, just to give you a chance to actually get on the soft
At
spot.
some point, you're not gonna have a choice. The one that we have has got to be replaced. Each winter, we make it through another winter, but at some point, it's gotta be fixed. It's
Are
gotta
we
be replaced.
rehabbing the one we have, or is this?
No.
This is no. That one is too small, too short, too narrow, too
Needs a
everything.
flame.
And the
Oh, you'll
biggest,
be
the
in
biggest
front.
issue is,
Relocated.
I
They're
don't-
gonna be being Ronnie, but.
I don't know for sure. My gut feeling is that it would be located right where the sand pile is now.
Right, that's why I was hopeful to be able to make that turn a little bit less with the thoroughfare that's there now with
Absolutely.
either the transfer station or the school buses traffic in
Yep.
the morning.
Yep.
Right?
And if you're gonna build a salt shed, you're gonna wanna build it, coincide it with some storage
You got it.
for all the stuff that is in the building that's too small as it is.
Is it,
You're not just gonna want a salt shed, you're gonna want a salt shed that's gonna hold a whole bunch of other stuff.
is it a good idea to put the salt shed down where everything else is right now, or locate it in a different
And
location?
again, if you're gonna get a
I
price
don't
on
know where
that,
else you would put it.
and again, if you was to get a price on that, it'd always be nice to have a couple of overhead doors to stuck away your 3 or 4.
Chipper, hot box, chipper.
Correct, all of the stuff that does sleep outdoors, that
Yep.
should have a place inside.
Land in the salt shed, do we have any land right now?
We can fit it there. There's a couple different alternatives. We could shift it in the front towards Capitol Ave. What am I trying to say here? That's a form over, function over form, is that right?
Yes, it's not gonna be so
Not
pretty.
gonna look good, but it'll be,
Aesthetically, it won't be pleasing, but
it'll be cheap to do, and it'll be, well, cheaper, I would suspect.
Shit floats too, but that don't make it right.
It's a good thing nobody has been drinking tonight.
But
Thankfully, Twyla doesn't type those things in.
I think the
Good.
Yes. Sure of it. Sure I've been bleeped twice.
Okay, so, 250 is what this thing costs.
So,
And again, this is a speculation, correct? This 250 number? Have you got one vendor that said this is what it's gonna cost? Have you looked at Quonset hut? Have you looked at multiple buildings? Have you looked at stick build? Have
This
you
is a
looked at?
number I got from the city of Lewiston when they built their last salt shed, and then I bumped it up.
Okay.
It was just under 200, I believe.
Yeah.
each.
Right. And so I bumped it to 250.
What's that?
How long
Knowing that we've got
What
a lot
size?
of unknowns.
What size? I mean,
How big is the building you're talking
Yeah.
about?
I want to say 100 by 200, but it may not be that big. It may only be
It's not 100 wide, but
Then maybe
200
it's-
sounds right.
I was waiting
90,
for Mr. Lewis
80 or
to-
90 by 200 then?
And the building we
Bet
have
it's
right now,
someplace.
how big is that building? It's oddballed.
The main storage itself, geez, I guess I've never measured it because I just wanted,
burn it down.
Is that
It can't be,
building?
well,
is that
it's
building-
so funky too, cause you've got the main bay where we store the salt.
Uh-huh.
And let's just look at it at capacity. Capacity filled to the rafters, there's only a few guys down there that can do it and get it that full, is 11 loads, so 30 times 11.
Do the math, it's easy.
Right.
All I gotta do is add a zero next to it.
How
I
many
mean,
loads
it's
are you
gonna
gonna
be
put in
a
the
guesstimation
building
anyway.
Well, it'd be nice to be able to get what we estimate each year, 2,500 ton.
Right, so you put the whole thing in there and not have to be
No,
Waiting
no
for-
messing
We
around.
wouldn't be running into the problem we did this year where we're waiting on.
waiting and hope they get it before the
The
storm
old,
comes.
old salt shed would have to come down for putting in the new, or no, we're gonna
The old
leave
salt shed I would not recommend.
it
think
that
it's
for
anything
anything?
like that.
You can't do anything else?
Make it
That'd be a
disappear.
Well, that's fine. That's what I'm
liability.
trying to understand.
And again, if you pushed it over to where the sand pile is or more in that direction, you would open that up so you would have better visual for the buses and everybody else
That's-
going in
that's
and out
great.
of there. And
Straighten that road
I
out
just
a
like the
bit.
fact that there's a plan. I like that. That's good.
I don't like the 250, because if we go over 250, then we have to take it out to referendum.
So when did Lewiston build theirs?
6, 8 years ago now. So, the 250 maybe.
I mean, is there any way to spread out the cost of that 250 over more time? You know, do like, you know, a bond over 5 years or something, just we're not gonna hit all at once?
I don't think it's a good idea to bond it, but I hear what
I
you're saying,
would-
Mark.
You could
Fund it.
fund it any way you see fit, is what I'll
Then we're back to the
say,
referendum
that's
thing
your
again.
prerogative.
I've got that on the,
We're back
on
to
the
refer-
list.
Fine fund
We're back to the
balance.
referendum again, and
Well, you
last time this went out, it didn't.
I mean, you could bond it if it's under 250 without going to referendum.
I don't think it's gonna be under 250 though. I think he used the 200, it was 200K for the Lewiston one, that was about 6 or 8 years ago, and he bumped up to 250.
Well, again, you don't necessarily, again, there's more than one form of construction.
We don't necessarily need it to be that large either.
Right.
I don't remember.
Because it's
I
still
don't
a
know
lot
what
of
the volume-
what ifs.
There's a lot of variables, and
Correct. Right. Assumptions.
Lewiston's got the Salt of Mahal.
You know, I'm just looking at that,
Salt of Mahal.
All right.
The Taj Mahal of salt.
So again,
you know, I'm
if
just
you could
looking
bring,
at that 19% budget that's out there, and, you know, we can't just, you know, throw it on the taxpayers all in one year. So
No, I can hear what
If
you're
there's a
saying.
way to spread it out, and not have, you know,
absolutely.
that whole, you know,
I'm a
kicking the pants
taxpayer
in one
several
year.
times over.
Yeah, you're not gonna hear me complain, it's coming out of my
I
wallet
mean,
too, bud.
hopefully next year we'll start to get some of the increased revenue from the new development in town, but that's not gonna help us for this year.
If
Diane.
it goes, it's going out of fund balance.
Yeah. Because that's what I was just gonna say was if we added up all of this.
Just for that reason, Mark.
Yep.
Just for that reason.
It would come
80
out of-
by 132 was
Yeah.
194,000.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it wasn't, I knew it wasn't 100, so.
And they were constructed in '02.
How much did that hold?
It doesn't,
I'd have to call my guy.
80 by 132, and then the other one they built was 80 by 192, and that was 271.
Dick Moran would be able to tell me, but I don't.
80 by 132.
He can tell you how much is in it, just by the.
80 by 132 is twice or
The
even,
addition we just added to the garage was 25 by 80,
right,
and that was built for less than 100,000.
right.
Completely, I mean, we're not gonna build a steel
Right.
storage building, but
For another
Correct.
prison
So-
location, you mean?
But
Realistically then, 250 is just leaping off point, we could probably land somewhere in the 150 to 190 mark, maybe?
You land anywhere south of 250, I'm cool, because I'm not taking it to the town voters, because it's
Right.
something that they've empowered us to be able to do, but we're trying to make the stewardship work, so we're not actually paying for this over time. That was the 2 complaints that they hit
You- it-
specifically.
again, if you could get it under the 2 and you could get some optimal extra space for all the different signs,
let's
few
face it, I
pieces
mean,
of
the
equipment,
way we did the addition to the Public Works garage now,
you could just keep
it's
going.
designed, you could add another bay
Absolutely.
right to that. I mean, it's just a matter of taking down that end wall. And actually,
Perfect.
I don't know, I'd probably not
Leave it.
separate it.
Correct.
I mean, I'd
Leave it.
probably leave it separated because it wouldn't be heated.
Correct.
It did space, all you need is lighting maybe.
Yep. And that was built, that shell with the concrete and everything else was, I think, right around 100.
So what are we saying?
I'm saying thumbs up, but fund balance. That's me. But where you
Fund
guys-
balance and get it below 250.
Get it below 2 or 2 at
Let's
a-
just
two
see,
as a
let's
ceiling.
get some bids.
Right, let's see some real
Let's get some
numbers.
bids.
All right,
I need some sort of design.
Right.
all right. Take out your old markers.
That's right.
Slide ruler. Show us what you're made of. You didn't forget.
Yeah.
We good?
next.
Yeah, we didn't tell you no, so that you ought to be happy as shit.
I am ecstatic.
I can tell.
Careful.
Joy is just oozing.
Careful.
Jumping up and down inside.
Anything else
Well, I'm
over
glad
there?
you're the good
There's,
one, Jim.
Yeah.
what's the 6 grader on the bottom, though, equipment?
That's
line
the
items?
hopper sander that can go away.
The 6 grand can go right
There you
over
go, that was what you
6
thought.
grand, savings, cut, boom.
It's like that, easy stuff. So then where do you wanna go to next?
Solid waste, right?
Yep.
Next tab?
Solid waste.
As far as you know. Anybody remember when this meeting started?
Yeah.
And? And the great comfortable chairs that we all are sitting in.
I stole Miriam's today.
Oh, see how you are? I didn't even realize you're cushioned up.
I can't even think.
Just be thankful I'm not sleeping.
It's all right. Couple more hours, you'll be ready to go.
Where are we?
I didn't see a
Next
hell of a
tab.
lot of cuts in this one. The one
solid
that
waste.
actually has my
Close my
heartburn is
Okay.
the one that's $250,000 that we can do little with.
Right after the one
I
we
got
just
it.
going for PW, winter. Winter.
Capital improvement plan,
There really isn't
that's
much.
really the only thing, that last item.
I'm gonna flip my
I mean,
little-
in the waste disposal fees, that's the biggest thing, and that, where I was going originally, is
We go, the contract's up at the end of this fiscal year. June 30, 2018 is when, so I suspect if they follow the way they did the last time, they'll approach us this year wanting to negotiate a newer rate and then another 5-year
right,
contract.
right.
If that's the way they handled it the last time.
Where do we currently send our trash? I believe they're gonna increase their prices, so.
Doesn't surprise me.
I have a little inside information.
I know you
Their
do.
prices are gonna go up, so, be prepared for a
Oh, I didn't touch that one.
you know,
Yeah, you did.
fairly
Still pretty
significant increase.
Right now, we're locked into, with our contract, that it's 2% or 4% is the max
Yeah.
each year. 2 to 4, I should say.
One of the heartburns that I had actually going through this one is the $250,000 for that item. And remembering reading through the fee schedules and ordinances at the time, there's language in the ordinances about mandatory recycling.
I recycle like a,
Yeah, that's, do you feel like that's mandatory up there?
I do not feel like it's mandatory, and it should.
And that's where I'm actually coming at it from, is the fact is, I know,
Don't?
what's that?
At the dump?
Yeah. What,
I've gotten yelled at for accidentally throwing something in the hopper. And it was pure accident.
Good.
I was
All the
just,
stuff that's in the black plastic bag that who knows what's in.
right, now, there's no
Right.
How do
there's
you
no
police
mandatory
that?
in that, and that's where,
Theory, it's supposed to be mandatory, but there's no way to enforce it.
It wouldn't-
Yeah.
Get out my switchblade and start opening up bags as you're tossing
at
them.
one point in time, it was supposed to be the fact that nothing was gonna be dumped there unless it was in a clear bag for that reason, exactly too. And the fact is, those days are long gone.
When you watch your black bag go fast down into the
But-
hopper and you get smashed with glass, you're like, hey, somebody threw a TV.
Or the
away."
guy can barely lift it to toss it in. You know there's something in there that probably should have been recycled and not in that.
See somebody's face turn a beat red there.
And I'll be
That would be
honest,
me at work.
Dick Plummer's not
That's
picking
me
that
any
up.
given day. When it's a contractor's bag, there's a reason, because I'm removing something you shouldn't be seeing. Yeah. But
So what do
the
you
point that
think?
I make is, it's $250,000, and the fact is, anything that comes out of that stream,
But it's more than just that line is more than just the trash. It's also the cost that we pay to get rid of the sheetrock,
all of it.
all of it.
Every bag.
Everything comes out of that 250.
Correct.
How much is the
Again, we're
revenue
not
offset
charging-
then? That's in the other item, so we can,
I just gave you an updated revenue sheet.
thank you for pointing that out.
I'm trying to find my revenue summary, my recycling
so
summary.
without going to like pay as you throw or paying for trash bags, can we make that a requirement that it has to be in?
I don't care if it's just simple being a little more militant to actually enforcing the mandatory, it says mandatory. Mandatory sounds pretty harsh.
Policing requires bodies.
Right, that's the main thing,
Right.
is they're so understaffed, they don't have somebody to stand there and say, you know.
Now, just
"Go
get
out
there
of
every day.
And then by the time it goes already in,
Right,
and then
like,
you
if
hear it, it's like, oh,
Get out of there, you know, here's a
and it
vote, run
clearly
down the
says,
truck,
do
pull
not
it
get
out."
in the hopper.
Just to keep the pileups by the cardboard hoppers afloat, you got a man over there doing that. You know.
In our household waste, in '06, it was 3,100 tons a year, and we've reduced it down to 2,600 tons a year.
So there is recycling, I just maybe not seeing it, so
And the,
I feel better about that. Anything that makes me off the ledge.
For the most part, I see a lot of people going and dumping their recyclables. Anytime I've been there, it's,
Well, the single stream hauling portion of it's gone up too, so I mean, they're hauling on a more frequent basis.
Okay.
But,
Single streams definitely helped.
yeah,
Because, I mean, that's the lazy man's approach. You just get a bigger container and you put it all in and you dump it in one hole. I mean, then
Well,
that's
then
not a
it's
bad thing, because it's
Sort
more
it out, right.
economical, because the cost shift is to somebody on a separate site that actually is sorting that on a full-time basis for their job, right. But, you know, that's the easy one to be able to absorb. The other one that actually is out there in the back of my mind is there are communities that are putting in play voluntary composting programs, because food scraps coming out of this as well is something that actually goes back as a revenue source, and you're not paying the going rate for tonnage to go to MWAC just to have it actually cost you both ways. You know,
right now, we're at least until Wayne does something differently, all our compost gets disposed of for free. We don't pay to get rid of that part of it.
where is the compost actually?
The
allowed?
leaves and the brush and everything goes.
Yeah, I'm looking at exponent,
Like
food
food.
scraps.
Yeah, we haven't talked about that.
It'd be hard.
But it.
It'd be a
estimates-
facility improvement in order to make that function, I think.
But as I said, if it was just a volunteer basis, but right now there's no place for it to even go. The point that I'm trying to make is the article that I read in the Townsman is the fact is that
Yep.
something is around 33% of all household waste is just food scraps and that kind of stuff. So, you know, a third of that 180 grand that we don't recover
That's
can be
quite a-
eliminated.
It's quite a program doing composting and making it work.
Yeah.
I've been involved in a program like that, and, you know, you need to have more help too, because there's a lot
There's a
of
labor,
work when
there's
you.
labor
It's
component, I get
Labor
it.
intensive.
Well, it's a community buy-in. That's willing to say that we are okay with the expense, the resources.
Then you need the space to do it too.
Right.
I know
And
the
I
raccoon- know
think
the
we
raccoon in
might
my
have the
backyard
space, but we
appreciates
do
I throw
not
all
have
the
any
food
to
over
live.
the hill. I see him on a regular basis, he gives me that big thumbs up, he walks by.
I do a compost.
Oh, no, I don't drag my leaves off in the same way. I'm a believer in the compost piles just for that reason, but not everybody has it, and we're still not talking about the household waste, which,
No. Mine's everything. Leaves,
I mean,
food.
the reduction that you spoke of there, for what you say, 31 down to 26, that's a pretty good jump. And I think from there, it's just a matter of taking some of the ideas that you talk about. How do we make that next step with what we have? Because I think it's
Right.
got to be a gradual. I don't think it can be a flip the switch.
I think
We just
that's
don't have
I think
the
that's a
resources.
workshop kind of thing.
Oh, for
not
sure.
so much a
Yeah,
budget
well,
kind of thing.
I was sitting at the last one, and he went,
Next.
Oh,
We did
moving
hear
right
me.
along.
that's weird. That next line came up out of nowhere.
Okay, so, items for discussion for anything cut on this budget at all? I mean,
What's the other capital
Yeah.
improvement, the
I just
30,000?
I believe that was the same thing to
Big
start
numbers stick
funding.
out.
Start a capital
Start
improvement
funding.
plan.
Replace the, I mean, we just recently replaced the trash trailers and the wood trailer. We're gonna be coming up on, based on life cycle standpoint, replacing the tractor trailer truck that does, the hauling. Basically, we would do what we've, the one that's primary would then become the
Second,
backup, and then the backup would go away.
Didn't we just fix one of those last year? I don't know. What was it? We fixed something. I'm trying to remember what it was.
Track
yeah, it was a
trailer.
$6,000 expenditure.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah. I don't know how you guys feel on this one, but I think this one actually makes sense to leave it as it is, because that was a $6,000 to $30,000 expenditure, depending on where the weld was actually gonna play out with that item last year. So, I'd rather not have that surprise. But we can put it on for the future discussion, because
It'll come
we'll
up.
be done with the others.
Yep.
So let's put it on the list for the others, but the one great
What's the difference
equalizer.
between, 5390 supplies and parts and, 5345 repair and maintenance?
5345 is generally when we have to send something out to be repaired.
Okay,
That's generally the account, the parts line is when the mechanics do work for them, they'll bill whatever parts they have to that account.
okay. Thank you for the clarity.
Anything else in solid waste, guys? Are we down to sewer treatment and that's it?
Stop it, saying so,
Toy with me.
way in the back. Bye-bye.
You are.
Dun, 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 dun.
I think it's this one.
Yep.
No, separate, another document.
Two-page, three-page at
It's
the
only
end.
2 pages long.
I think I'm gonna keep this book this year. I haven't slept so well in so long.
It's cold.
Nice,
man.
nice pillow.
It's the end of the night. I'm punchy. I'm sorry. I'm done. I'm trying.
This one, the one that stands off, health reimbursement account. In
We-
the health 5138, guys. Isn't the RHA what we have to actually reimburse the difference between the amount per employee? It's not the flat amount each year,
It's flat amount each year.
so
And it's also the monthly fee that we have to pay per employee, which isn't much.
can you look at what's
Let me look
not
at
being,
that.
that balance is not right. We have $3,100 left in the account and only $3,750 budgeted. I thought if it was just a replenishment, that we'd only have to budget what we think we're gonna put into the account, not $3,700 each year. Something just doesn't look right on that. Um, 5210.
Mhm.
CCT and cleaning outs. We haven't used that.
No, yeah, we're intending to send out the camera crew this spring on the roads that were intended to get paved,
Okay.
to verify what conditions, if any, are there.
Okay, so it's a spring function. That was what was throwing me off, is in Bill Wright, keep putting 10 grand into an account if it's not gonna actually be utilized.
I only have 5 years for this account, but the 5-year average is, if I can find it again, 24,000. We were budgeting closer to 30 for a while.
It'd come down to the 10 that we're at now.
Yep.
Electricity?
That one, we've got a pretty good trend that we were looking at, and that's why we left it. Left it the same.
Yeah. My issue there is we got like 4 months left in the year and roughly 43 left in the account. Can we make that 87? Or am I out to lunch?
I think Steve and I talked about that, but we were a little leery about.
Touching that item?
Again, it's the same deal where springtime, snow melt, of course now everything seems to be going like that, but,
Yeah, so it was
our
winter yesterday,
flows-
summer today.
flows tend to increase, which means
More
pumps,
electricity.
everything else. It's a function of the pumps having to run more, drives up the cost for the electricity. Again, back to the, just looking at the averages, and it's hard to tell with rate changes and whatnot, but the average for electricity has been 103. So we're a little leery about dropping it too much, but it's something we can look at, I can take another closer look as we get further through the year.
Could you?
Yep.
Could you?
Yep.
That's just the one that stands off there, but because of what we're looking at this year, because it seems unusually low, but obviously not hitting spring flows yet, too.
And
And
I'm not
last-
sure when the
last drought.
bills, I'm not sure when, what cycle we're at with, are you able to see how many months of bills have been?
Through 3/21, so would have been,
I don't know, because CMP I think has been running a little
I'm
late.
assuming February's is paid, and that would leave you
Okay.
4 months, that's why I was,
Gotcha.
based on the trend. And
can look
in,
at that.
in that, what I was, if I'm hearing you correctly, I may be wrong, because we had drought conditions last year, so no increased cost of the pump, so it may be unusually low, so your number makes sense, too.
Right.
So if you come back and say no, I'd be more comfortable at it, but I'd,
That's fine, I'll look it over closer.
waste disposal. We got 48 grand left in an $80,000 budget. You budgeted to bring it down to 75, but that still looks high.
I didn't print that one.
5285, right?
Line
Yes, sir.
32.
Yep.
We can check that as
I'll
well.
look at that one, yeah.
Because if you can squeak another 5 grand out of that, I'd feel better. I mean,
Okay.
it seems high. What's the history on your small tools? Looks like they whittled your budget down, and then I don't know what the expenditure line was looking like over that trend.
We're at 3,500 for an average. We bought, I mean, we went also from, I mean, it's the same thing in Public Works, we went with, they were working with tools they've had
Yeah.
probably since the building was open. You know, replacing a socket here or there to full-on replacement type of stuff, and in adding new equipment to the mix. We didn't have a welder at sewer department before, we've got a small MIG welder there now, it's that kind of stuff.
Okay.
This is your scaled down CIP for small tools, is what you're saying?
Yep.
Still 2,200 in the account, so I would use that this spring, so it justifies keeping at the $3,000 rate. That would be my takeaway.
So what you wanna do with that?
Leave it.
Nothing, we're
Just
leaving
leave
it.
it?
I-
Okay.
leave it.
I was
I'm
looking for
okay with
something,
it.
I wasn't paying attention.
Nope, you're all good. You didn't miss a thing. Oh, that last page is sketchy as shit.
Yes. Please.
Hey, I like it, Alan, when you don't hold back.
Yeah. I think somebody will keep tracking.
Leaves? I think I'm about $1.50 into the quarter jar anyways.
Red checks and red circles.
53.85. Yeah. Chemicals?
Yeah, that's where we buy our polymer, our hypo. We also bill any outside lab testing that we have to do, our E. coli tests, equipment calibrations for the lab.
Is it?
It's always been kind of
Is
the
there a
lab
spring-
budget.
Is there a spring thing?
Yes, starting in May, we start to
Ramp up.
dechlorinate. I mean, not dechlorinate, yeah, chlorinate.
Okay.
Water dechlorinate.
It just seemed like there was an unusually large amount left in the account.
The polymer usage is, we can take another look at that too, because that's coincides with our sludge disposal.
Okay.
Which is the 50, yeah.
Yep,
The other one you wanted me to look at.
please. Please.
They kind of coincide anyway. If we're not putting out a bunch of sludge, we're not using the polymer.
Okay, right, goes hand in hand.
Yep.
Um,
And it is also, I will just add just another caveat, it is cyclical too with how much septage we receive. This winter, septage was way down, which was typical in the winter. Last winter, as mild as it was, I mean, it was a banner year for septage through the winter time. This year, it dropped off as it normally would, and you'll see a pickup. And we've already received in April, I think, more than we received all of March or February. I'd have to look back. But the first 2 weeks in April were pretty busy, so.
I think I'm comfortable with 5410. You're gonna tell me you wanna use pickup still?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The Vector
And that number may get smaller,
lease, make it smaller.
5410.
No, you said the right.
Find a good
Right.
$10,000 truck.
Right.
Right.
When you go to look for the other one there, tell them to package you right up nice. I mean, 2 used trucks.
Vector lease was, that's not an income line, that's,
That's our lease payment on the tractor.
oh,
on the
yeah,
back.
yeah, okay, yeah, yep, you guys bought it. Improvements,
How much longer you got on that Vector lease?
Let's see, it was 315,000, we're paying 30 cents. I think it was a 10-year lease, so
When did we start? Just
5 years ago?
2, 3, 4, 5, yeah. This will be the 5th payment. I
Correct.
think.
halfway
This will
home.
be the 5th payment.
Halfway home.
the, dumping station under improvements for 190K.
Mhm.
This was separate from the 8.5.
Correct. It was in the recommendations in the sewer system evaluation, but was not part of the Phase 1.
It was
Um,
before.
Right. It was an item, this is an item that we've had on the agenda for a while. The cost estimate that's here is considerably higher than we had considered ever when we were looking at it before, but based on their recommendations, this
That's
is.
what we need.
Yep. That's part of the reason why we haven't done anything, is that we still, none of us are really comfortable with what the right answer was, and we really needed some outside input.
What you got from this report to be able
Correct.
to base it on.
Yep.
Okay.
It's a big ask.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying it.
No, it's, yeah, it is. This one,
I think that's something too, that if there's support for that project, that's, we can sit down with Oliver Associates now and come up with a real, I mean, that was a high-level sewer system evaluation, estimates at the time. We could sit down and really look at a detailed project and then get a more of a detailed estimate out of them before the budget gets adopted, if there's support for that.
Clark better not be lying to me.
Well, it's probably one of the most comprehensive workshops we've ever had. I've had as secretary there, I'm sure.
everything Ryan, you said it coming in the door.
Yep.
So what'd be the wish? And then 190K?
So
Looking at
you'd
us,
be able to get-
You're asking the
I know
rule,
what he's
you're asking
saying.
Ryan.
Is he put it in the budget? I know what he said.
So
I'd like,
Yeah.
if there's, if there's support
Yeah.
for the, I mean, if now,
If you can get a
sit down
better,
with Oliver between
Yes.
now and whenever I get to come back again.
please,
So let's put it on the
Try to
list,
narrow
that
it.
way it can be something we can
yes,
revisit.
future
Put it on the
discussion
list.
item for
Oh,
the
definitely.
list, so he gives you a
54.25.
chance to be able to come up with a real number.
Next, we come back.
A more
we'll give
solid
you-
number, it's
I'll
a
give
real
you some
number.
information.
Speculations, assumptions, lots of them.
Meter readings, 7,300 still in the account? 10 out of a budget, is that high?
I don't know what we get billed from the water department and how that function happens.
That's a Shelley
What
question.
did we, hey, what
Last-
did we do last year?
We did
$8,016,
$8,000 last year, 871.
Can check with,
Can you, yeah,
I
because
can check with Shelley to see if it's, yeah.
if it's coming, because we still got 7,300 in the
Yeah.
account, that's what throws me off.
Yeah. I think there's one more coming, but I don't know if it'll hit the 10,000. If hits 8,000 again, then we probably could reduce that by a couple of 1,500.
Yeah, that would be great. And the other two pieces on this would be, you need from us, you have a recommendation on a rate increase?
Yeah, I think that based on
It's
the
this
information
revenue sheet.
from Oliver.
Trying to do a phase-in approach.
To be able to address it by the time that it
By
needs
the
to be.
time we have to make that debt payment, yeah.
Based on their estimates, we're anywhere from a 41 to a 39 to 41%.
Wasn't it contingent too, that, the funding for this was based on us making a move on the, rates as well?
That's
Yes.
the way it was explained.
I mean, even if we didn't get funding to do phase one, they encouraged us to increase the rates. But if
Right.
we go in, like we're gonna get that funding and part of it grant, that's what we base these rates on. It doesn't mean we have to start right off at the
Right.
new year that way. We can wait until after November and kick it in partway. Once
Yes.
we know if we're going to, you know what I mean? We can
Yep.
start with a smaller increase for the first half and then change it midway through if we wanted to.
Their
Once we
minimum
know-
recommended increase anyway, even if we did nothing, was 11%.
Yeah,
What are we talking about for an increase again?
17% this year, and 18% next year is what we were talking about. Just to get to the,
If you're paying a sewer bill, yes, ouch.
that would, I've got this 3 pages, 4 pages, I'd like to, I know it's the end of the night, I'll just circle that around. That was gonna be the draft, it's all one package, but that was gonna be the draft handout for the public hearing.
What if we do nothing? I'm just gonna say it. What if we do nothing? Can we do nothing and still get?
Come up with, it diminishes our possibility of getting funding from the source.
Right? Anything else?
The flip side of it is if you wait,
100%
you
of
wait
it.
and do the whole rate increase,
At one time?
Yeah.
Which would be not favorable, because then it's going from what you were paying all along to, surprise, almost double.
we
Yeah.
need to
Because if
do
you're
a
doing
rate
18 and
increase. We're gonna
19%
get more
over 2
grant money if
years.
we do a rate increase.
Yeah, no.
And we're already
I-
below the average anyways.
Way below.
Good. See,
Right. But
We're
that was,
actually,
that was
But
for
it's-
the camera. Everybody doesn't know what
using
we're
the
doing.
model,
That's
their
right.
frustrating
I think it
point is.
wasn't even Richmond,
you're
it's like
being
double
punished
than
for
what
doing
we
a
are.
good job.
We are very low on the rate scale.
I think the key here is that we could, I floated that question quite simply to say, if we do nothing, here are all the bad things that can happen to us. Sure, things would remain the same and we'll all pay the same rate for a while. And then
So
when
we
all these
have-
problems start popping up and we're in dire
We have to pay
straits.
8.5 million on
We're-
our own.
We're,
8.5 million, let's say that out loud and again for the camera. 8.5 million on our own, or we can go now and make gradual increases in our rates. We'll get funding, based on a, study that was done by our good
Some of
friends
it
at
that we
Almer.
don't have to pay back.
Yeah.
30%.
and also if we have a major issue and we get a consent agreement with DEP because we didn't maintain our lines,
So-
it's not gonna look favorable to us for not maintaining the lines. But if we can show that we're putting money and upgrading them and say something does happen, it will be better for us.
Sewer infrastructure is out of sight, out of
It is,
mind,
yeah.
so people don't.
No, I know, it's in the ground, nobody sees
So
it.
that's why it's tough to explain to somebody when they get a sewer bill and it went up, that's saying, how did my services change? They didn't, and that's the good news, is that everything remains the same, but if we don't maintain these, it's gonna get worse, it's gonna cost a lot more.
devil's advocate, we have done $4 million worth of work over the last 10, 15 years and had one rate increase.
Right.
But you're not keeping up with
You're not investing, you're
fast
maintaining.
enough.
We have over 100-year-old pipes in the ground that are leaking like a sieve, and then sometimes that taxes our, not sometimes, a good portion of the times it's taxing our water treatment plants, which in them cases, it's only a matter of time before something bad
One
happens.
pump station failure,
Yeah, and then we're,
charge to the river for
yeah, and then we're
Davis
paying,
Street flooding, and then we're,
then we're paying the EPA and the DEP and everybody else and their brother are fine, and we still gotta fix it.
And then you're gonna be required to do it.
Yeah. With the Fed
Yeah.
right over
And in a
our shoulder,
community where
making
we
sure
have-
that we're doing it up to this. I'm perfectly fine with this, you won't hear me complain one bit.
Yeah,
I think it's smart to make that investment now.
yeah,
Anybody on that side of the room wanna see some of this action?
Yes.
especially if we can get some grant money to go with it.
Yes.
Can I
We'll
get you to
s-
give me
no.
a copy of this?
I
You
can
have it.
email it.
No, I don't want this, they're passing it around,
Oh, yeah.
but send me one,
Could you please?
please.
Make that
Copy
two.
too.
I'll take one too if you send it.
We're gonna, I guarantee you I'm gonna get 2 or 3 phone calls on it, I just wanna be able to.
I would not necessarily send
I'm
them
gonna
each one, but maybe
Update the
email
list
us all
from
one.
tonight's stuff, and when I do, I'll
I think
send that
that might be a
out.
little
Sweet.
easier. If
Yeah.
somebody wants one, they can all plug it in, hit print.
Yeah, exactly, it's fine with me.
That's what I.
Diane just said she's
I'm
been
gonna be
keeping.
updating like I did last time, so when I do that, I'll send that out at the same time. I'll have
Please.
Ryan send it to me and I'll attach it, so.
I just wanted to know, and the only feedback I'm looking for is this, you know, basically what you're looking for the public hearing, because that's Tuesday night, next Tuesday night.
I mean, I might
One
add a-
Tuesday night coming soon.
I might add a page of, what are the, if we don't invest this money, what kind of things could happen, just, as we say for the general public, if it's,
Not so much a scare tactic, but, and this is
what
the
is the
other
alternative if
side.
you don't invest, okay, you're
I
gonna
mean,
have
didn't
problems.
Oliver already kinda have something in that presentation already, that one that they gave us? I thought so.
Yeah, I
just want
can,
my-
and I
still
was
want
trying
my
to
books.
just shrink it down, so, but, yep, no problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then you'll get feedback and we'll go for it for Tuesday night. The revenue stream that you've got here includes,
That includes
That-
the 17% increase.
Based on where it looked like we would be with actuals this year, the revenues, I doing this for 15 years now, and the revenues, I mean, it's, that sewer domestic revenue, it is, I mean, every time the time that we raised the rates, we never even had what we thought we would base, and it was just that simple math, it was, this is what you got last
What you
year.
wrote down.
If you're gonna increase it this much, you should get this much, and I don't know if it corresponds with water consumption, water conservation, and then, so we're just not getting that flow of water,
but to their point, they don't care, they won't look at our fee structure, whether we actually get the revenue or not,
Right.
that's where their model's flawed.
Yeah.
So, it's probably not as high, it's not gonna reflect as a 17% increase over last year's estimated revenues, but it did it based on what it looks like
Current
our
fee
actual
structure.
is gonna be.
You wear me down, anything else?
Next.
There's nothing left. We
Yeah,
go
that's
home.
it.
I make a motion
That's
to
game over.
adjourn.
Seconded.
I don't think we need,
Go away,
I
leave.
don't think we have anything left. I don't think we have anything left.
I'm gonna have to drive my butt home. So tired.
That is all she wrote for tonight.
Diane, when you're going through these, you see any stone that we didn't turn that you think
Please do.
warrants, please let us know.
I will.
There were 3 or 4 that you brought up at the last one.
Thank you, Ryan.
After a
No problem.
3-hour meeting, it becomes